This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Street Sense, any given Saturday, down to the wire. It's Street Sense, any given Saturday, is right back at him. These two heads apart, too close to call. Might have been Street Sense in a fabulous race. Running time on the board, 1 minute, 43 seconds flat for the Tampa Bay Derby.
1 furlong to go. Azeri's still there, and she's pulling away. Azeri by 3, and now by 4. She has left Imperial Chester Reeling and Bardamiga too much, way too late to get to the distant champion, Azeri.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
This race living up to its expected power as they come to the wire. Their noses apart. It's Beholder. I think she got her head down on the wire. Songbird, dogging, gambling all the way. The two of them right together.
Out in the center, Forte tries to overhaul Cyclone Mischief, who's very game, but Forte's very good. As a 3-year-old, he debuts with an easy victory in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Here's your 2-year-old champion. Here's Forte, geared down.
Now, here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the show that launched a network, the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, bearing in the backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride again this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 216 XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country. And yes, streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you are accessing your podcast. Listeners in more than 160 countries have made the Horse Racing Radio Network their home for racing content over the course of the past year, and I thank you for tuning in each and every week. Well, the road to the Derby is starting to get to the next level. One more 50-point race, then we start looking ahead to the 100-point races. 56 days, 9 hours, 42 minutes, and 44 seconds remaining until the Run for the Roses on Saturday, May 6th. The Tampa Bay Derby is the lone points race slated for this weekend, and as you might expect, if you want to get the 50 points, which go to the winner of that race, you have to beat Hall of Famer Todd Pletcher. The race goes through Todd. Todd is in search of his 6th win in the Tampa Bay Derby, and he's going to saddle the top 2 choices on the morning line, Tapit Trice and Shesterkin. And to give you a little more perspective on what Todd's doing, his dominance in this race, consider that no other trainer has won the Tampa Bay Derby more than twice. And with this being the 43rd renewal later today, Todd's 5 wins in the previous 42 runnings is good for 14%. That is ridiculous. Todd has won 14% of all the Tampa Bay Derbies ever run. Todd took time to join me for an interview yesterday, which you're going to hear coming up at 9:40 Eastern, and he talked about why this particular race has been so good for him and for his program. He also spent plenty of time talking about 2-year-old champion Forte, and if he's right in his opinion of where this horse is right now, you can pretty much forget about anyone else. I think Todd's feeling extremely confident with Forte, as he should. And again, you're going to hear that full interview coming up at 9:40 Eastern with Todd Pletcher. Today's stakes calendar also honors 2 of the best female horses in the history of our sport, with the Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn and the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. We always talk about how difficult it can be to compare horses or teams from different eras. But who would you take if both of those horses were in the same race? Azeri and Beholder. And let's put their resumes side by side. I was trying to think about how I might answer that question. And I did a deep dive into both of their careers. Both horses are in the Hall of Fame, so that's a push. Both received 4 Eclipse Awards during their careers, so that's a draw. Although Azeri was voted Horse of the Year in 2002, so maybe that carries a little more weight for some of you. Azeri won 17 of her 24 starts. Beholder won 18 of 26. So not a big difference there, almost identical. Grade 1 victories, how about this? Dead even. Both horses recorded an incredible 11 Grade 1 wins. So maybe the deciding factor to help answer my initial question lies in the number of Breeders' Cup wins tallied by each. Beholder won the Juvenile Fillies at 2, then went on to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff not once but twice. Azeri's only Breeders' Cup win came in the 2002 Distaff, and she likely would have won another in 2004, but her connections opted for the Breeders' Cup Classic, where she finished 5th in a race won by fellow Hall of Famer Ghost Sapper, and that was a loaded edition of the Breeders' Cup Classic that year. But that's about the only real difference between Azeri and Beholder, and you're nitpicking. But if you're going to answer that question, and you have to pick one, I'm going to give the edge to Beholder. 3 Breeders' Cup wins, and the way that she did them and accomplished those 3 wins, especially her last one, simply magnificent. And when Dale and Tim join me on today's edition of I Ask the Answer at 10:30 Eastern, I'm going to present them with several head-to-head matchups to debate, featuring some of the greatest distaffers in the history of our sport, including Azeri versus Beholder. I'll get their thoughts on who they feel would win if both of those horses were in the same race. In the meantime, I want to know your thoughts on those matchups. And you can do it right now on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Going to do it a little bit differently this morning. Typically, I will throw out a single poll question and update the results throughout the show. But this week's going to be a little different. In honor of these great distaffers being remembered today, I want you to vote on the matchups that I'm going to bring up with Dale and Tim later. So here's your choices. And you can go to @HRRN on our Twitter feed to cast your vote. You can go to our Facebook page, Horse Racing Radio Network, to cast your vote there. Or you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know. But here are the matchups I will bring up to Dale and Tim later on. Personal Ensign versus Zenyatta. Who are you going to take there? I don't think that's cut and dry. Winning Colors versus Rachel Alexandra. Lady Secret, the Iron Lady, versus Monomoy Girl. And Azeri versus Beholder. So there are 4 separate poll questions, if you will, this morning that you can cast your vote. Go to @HRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. Personal Ensign versus Zenyatta. Winning Colors versus Rachel Alexandra. Boy, wouldn't that be great to see. Lady Secret versus Monomoy Girl. And Azeri versus Beholder. And that would be one hell of a matchup. Spendthrift's Ned Toffey is going to join me at 8:35 Eastern to look back on Beholder's brilliant Hall of Fame career, and he'll update you on what Queen Bee is up to right now. Also, I believe we finally have our answer as to the horse to beat on the first Saturday in May, after Forte made easy work of his rivals in last Saturday's Fountain of Youth. But there were 3 other Derby points races run last Saturday. Raise Cane won the Gotham, Practical Move took the San Felipe, and Congruent upset the John Battaglia Memorial at Turfway. Ben Colebrook, who trains Raise Cane, is going to join me in just a few minutes, 8:15 Eastern, after our first commercial break. Tim Yakteen, the trainer of Practical Move, will join me live from the West Coast at 9:20 Eastern Time. And at 9 o'clock Eastern, you're going to hear from Justin Mustari, the 2021 NHC champion, joined Bobby Neuman on yesterday's Betting with Bobby show And after day one of this year's competition, which took place yesterday in Las Vegas, Justin finds himself in 271st position out of a record 779 entries in this year's NHC. He is $93 behind the leader going into day number 2 this afternoon. But you'll hear that interview with Justin coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern. So here's the full lineup. Ben Colebrook, 8:15, just a few minutes away. Ned Toffey from Spendthrift, 8:35. Justin Mustari, 9 o'clock, 9:20. Tim Yakteen, 9:40. That interview with trainer Todd Pletcher, which you will not want to miss. 10 o'clock, the TwinSpires Triple Play. James Scully will be here to give you 3 races you can keep an eye on later today. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History comes up at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin. Very busy show. I'll get to it next. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
Attention horse racing fans, don't miss your chance to witness the excitement and adrenaline of live horse racing. Come out to Laurel Park and experience the thrill of victory Friday through Sunday. Don't miss out on 5 thrilling stakes races with a total of $450,000 in purses on Saturday, March 18th that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Mark your calendars and join us at Laurel Park for an unforgettable day at the races. Gates open at 11 a.m. See you at the track.
There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the championship meet with live racing Wednesday through Sunday. Don't miss the Triple Crown prep races, including the Fountain of Youth Stakes on March 4th and the Florida Derby Saturday, April 1st. Enjoy the races outdoors from the Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms, offering a premium view of the races. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all number 1 in their category. Point of entry, the number 1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the number 1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the number 1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the number 1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty peer out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN. Presented by TwinSpires.
Carmel Road has got the lead at the top of the stretch. Up on the outside, it's Eyeing Clover who's ready to challenge. Eyeing Clover to the outside of Carmel Road, and they are lined up here on the grandstand side. Up on the far outside, General Banker, and from out of it, Raise Kane has taken the lead. It's Raise Kane who's come from the back of the field, has now passed them all. Raise Kane is well clear inside the final 16th. Raise Kane is going to draw away and win the Gotham. It's Raise Kane over Slip Mahoney, who had a late run as well. Then a photo. Eyeing Clover is there with General Banker in 1 minute 38.09 seconds in the Gotham.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you until 11 a.m. Eastern. That was Chris Griffin with the call of the Gotham last weekend at Aqueduct, won by Raise Cane. It was an upset in that race for trainer Ben Colebrook, and Ben Colebrook just 11 years ago saddled his very first horse. He's had plenty of highlights over the course of the past 11 years, but that one right there is going to be special as Raise Cane rolled to a big-time victory, and it's been a great ride for Ben Colebrook. And it's been a great ride recently because not only did Ben Colebrook saddle the winner of the Gotham, he also saddled the runner-up in the John Battaglia Memorial at Turfway last weekend. And of his last 3 starters that he has saddled, he has 2 wins and a second. So things are going pretty good. And Ben Colebrook is here on the Horse Racing Radio Network with me this morning. Ben, appreciate the conversation, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Appreciate you joining me. Man, let's just start with Raise Cane. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was nice to see him, finally break through because he's always acted like he's a good horse, and he showed it on Saturday, so we're happy.
Yeah, coming into the race, he had just that maiden win last year at Keeneland, but had been kind of knocking on the door with some other stakes competition. But this effort was another level. Where did it come from?
Well, I think I've said this, when people have asked. The pace scenario really benefited him, and he had never really been in a race where there's been some pace. And I thought that when he got in a race where there would be some early speed that he could kind of settle and make that one run, he'd be dangerous. He just, unfortunately, the race at the fairgrounds was kind of a paceless race, and then the poly track race was kind of a throwout because he didn't really like the poly. And then, back from that, when he broke his maiden, I ran him 3/4, and he just wasn't a sprinter. That was kind of on me. So really, when you look at it, I mean, his 2 races with, the maiden race had a little bit of pace, and he was able to run well and win by open lengths. And now the Gotham, where there was a ton of pace, and he won by open lengths. I mean, when you look at the races where there's pace, I think he's a different horse. And, in these Triple Crown preps and I don't want to bring up the Derby too much, but, in the Derby you usually get pace. So, and in the 3-year-old stakes going forward, the rest of the year, there's usually quite a bit of pace in them. So I think we could see, a continuation of how he ran when he has pace to run in front of.
You said you don't want to bring up the Derby just yet. Do you not let yourself go there even in your own mind right now?
Not really, no, because, it's just, look, you got a plan, but, you start dreaming of roses in May and you kind of get off track. So I think, I'm more of a, I guess I tell people I'm a optimist by nature and a pessimist by experience.
Are you superstitious?
Not really. No, I'm not superstitious, really. It's just more, with horses, I think you got to have a plan, weeks out, but I think you got to live day to day.
I would think that if you were superstitious, Ben, one thing you might want to keep doing with your horses is saddling them and then leaving and driving to the airport.
Yeah. That might be something. There is something to that, because one year, I think it was the second year Limousine Liberal won the Churchill Downs stakes. I was in New York saddling a horse for Claiborne in a maiden, and that was on Oaks Day. And I was flying out of LaGuardia, which is much tougher from Belmont than obviously JFK is to Aqueduct. And that I was flying back to Louisville, but if I didn't get out that afternoon, I was going to be flying Derby Day, and I just didn't want to do that. So I jumped in. I had a rental car to return, actually, too, this time. It was even more of a Herculean task. I think I left Belmont like an hour and 20 minutes before my flight, maybe less, like maybe an hour and 10 minutes. I got so lucky because when I turned over the rental car, there was, because, you got to take a bus and then another bus.
Like
LaGuardia, it's a nightmare. So there was a Uber. Somebody just got out of an Uber, and it was Indian gentleman that used to be a horse trainer in India. And he's like, I told him the story, and I told him the horse I had run, and I said, hey, you can bet on this horse tomorrow. And there was some secret way, I guess, that Uber drivers know. It got me to LaGuardia, and I made it through. I had clear, so I was able to cut through the security line pretty quick, and I got on the plane like right as they were closing the doors. So, and then Limousine Liberal won the race the following day. So maybe you might be right. There might be something to that.
Yeah, and if people don't know what I'm referring to, Dave Grenning posted on his Daily Racing Form Twitter feed that after you saddled Race Kane last Saturday, you took an Uber to JFK to catch a flight to Cincinnati so you could saddle the Battaglia, and you watched the Gotham on your phone while you were on your way to the airport.
That's correct.
Unbelievable. That might be something you might want to think about. That maybe, I don't know if I'd try it for the Derby if you get there, but hey, the way things are going, it might not be a bad idea, Ben.
Yeah, then if you were to, you wouldn't have to do all those interviews afterwards. That might be might be something. But
yeah. I think you would gladly do the interviews. If you're in the winner's circle and you're draped in roses, you'll do every interview you could possibly do.
I might not make any sense, or nobody will know what I'm saying, but I guess I will have to do the interviews. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if that? I mean, okay. I know you don't want to think about it, right? But let's just say that everything goes according to plan, and all of a sudden, the first Saturday in May, Race Kane is sitting there as the winner of the Kentucky Derby. I mean, come on, that's a dream come true for any trainer. But have you even given any thought to what that moment could be like in your career at any point?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said that, I hadn't, you don't train horses to not think about winning the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
So I have thought about it, but, I'm kind of, I never want to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. And, I think, there's plenty of time between now and the Derby, and we'll have another race in between, whether that's the Bluegrass or the Wood. And those races, both those races on their own are races that would be a dream come true to win. So, I think, when you're a smaller, kind of a medium to small outfit like mine, I think you just try to win. Graded stakes are such a big deal, and they're harder and harder to win, because all these bigger barns, I mean, nothing against them, but they have a lot of opportunity, a lot of great horses, and you're at a little bit of a disadvantage when you don't have the numbers that some of the guys do. So winning any graded stakes is special, but certainly the Kentucky Derby, it would be, I think I'd be pinching myself every day the rest of my life, making sure that was for real.
Yeah. Yeah. You obviously had a ton of faith in Race Kane, or you wouldn't have continued on the Derby trail with him and sent him to the Gotham. And of course you're rewarded. He now has 54 points toward a spot in the starting gate, which should be no problem. That should get him in easily. Does that alter your approach or take some of the pressure off going forward?
I guess it would. He doesn't have to win. He doesn't need any more points, so we don't have to squeeze or do it. I'm not a big squeeze the horse guy anyway in the mornings, but we can just kind of, let it play out and obviously try to get him to the Derby in as best shape as we possibly can. And the good thing about him is his mental capacity. He's such a laid-back horse and handles everything well. So, knock on wood, I would think that the Derby atmosphere won't be an issue for him. So that will be something that I think, will be kind of a ace up our sleeve as far as, I don't know what percentage, but there is a percentage of horses that lose their race in the Kentucky Derby before the jocks are ever legged up with what they have to go through with the walkover and the crowd and the noise and all that. Some horses just don't handle it well, but I would be highly surprised that it would bother Race Kane. I mean, he's so laid back, and the really good thing about the Gotham that I liked, I thought a big field would help him actually, and it really did, because he's so agile and he can steer through traffic. He's not a big heavy horse, and sometimes in the Derby it sounds crazy, but that's an advantage being kind of a little smaller and a little handier type horses, because some of these bigger horses get checked and going into that first turn and the race is over. So some horses don't handle the walkover and the mental and, that part of the Derby, and other horses, can't handle the traffic. And I think what we saw in the Wood, he definitely can handle traffic. And Aqueduct's a funny place with a big field. It's not like you have the big crowds at the Derby, but with that paddock and 14 horses in it was a lot and just going to New York is tough with the way it's situated now, where you go to Belmont and then you ship over to Aqueduct the day they run. I mean, a lot of horses probably would have handled that as well as he did, coming from Kentucky and, training at Belmont for a few days and then going to Aqueduct. So, and when we sent him to Fairgrounds, it was no problem. I mean, everything we do with him, it's like nothing bothers him. He eats good. He handles everything so well, and he's come out of the race super. So that is something I think that will be a strength for him.
Talking with trainer Ben Colebrook here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, looking back on Race Kane's victory in last weekend's Gotham at Aqueduct. Ben, you mentioned either the Wood Memorial or the Bluegrass Stakes as potential targets for his next start and his final start before the Kentucky Derby, if all goes according to plan. What factors determine which direction you're going to go? What race you'll choose next?
Well, I think competition. I think if one would, if the Wood would have to be significantly a softer spot for us to leave home base. I just think it's, especially like you said, with him having the points, if we don't have to ship out of town, not that it's, like I said, he's a great shipper, but if you don't have to ship, there's no reason to. And if the races were similar, it'd be a no-brainer. We'll stay at home and run at Keeneland, because he's just running from his own stall. And he said the beauty of it is he's won races on both surfaces, so that box has been checked. So yeah, just competition. I think that'll be the answer. But if we thought we could win the Wood, we'd go. But if it looked like, on paper we handicap it and look, there's some monster in there, and we run our race and we're going to be second or third, or be third or fourth in the Bluegrass, then we'll just stay just on paper. I mean, races obviously run on paper, but you got to have a plan. But I think that it would have to be very tempting to go to New York. But if we thought we had a shot to win the Wood, we'd by all means go.
Let's spend a couple minutes talking about the horse that led you to hop in the Uber and go to JFK. That's Scooby Quando, who was second behind Congruent in the John Battaglia Memorial at Turfway. Good effort, ran really, really well. Only beaten 3.5 lengths. I say only because I thought that he was running very well at the end. Still on the Derby trail? Are you still high on Scooby Quando?
I'm very high on Scooby Quando. I've always liked him. I don't know what his future will hold. I think he's going to be a very nice horse. I don't know if it'll be on dirt or turf. He's got some turf pedigree on the bottom side, on the dam side. He ran a very, very credible race, very good race. He got shuffled all the way back. I think he might almost got all the way back to last. And there's not much stretch to make up the ground at Turfway. So I think it was a sneaky good race. I was a little bit worried about running back in 3 weeks in the Jeff Ruby, but the way he ran that day, he only got to run about a quarter of a mile, and he came out of the race kind of mad. He was like he didn't get to show his stuff. So I think we'll wheel him back in the Jeff Ruby, and then if he gets, he's got a few Derby points. I think he has 8 points. If he were to pick up enough Derby points to get in the Derby, then we would discuss it. But if not, we might try him in the in a race on the turf, or try him on. His breezes have been great on the dirt, so I'm not ruling out that he's a dirt horse. But there's some things about him that I think the turf could be an option too. But by all means, we would consider the dirt until it's not an option anymore with the 3-year-old colt. There's so many good big races, and he's a really neat horse. He probably has a little bit more brilliance to him than maybe Race Kane from in the mornings. And he obviously broke his maiden in a stake, and ran a good allowance, good at second, and allowance to a nice Brad Cox horse. First time going 2 turns, and that was a lot to ask, in only a second race. And then he validated that effort with a really good run in another stake going 2 turns. So the future's bright with him.
Well, Ben, listen, it's great to be able to talk about this topic at this time of the year. I know you're thrilled to have these 2 3-year-olds, and I want to wish you all the best going forward. I'm sure we'll be talking as we do get closer to the first Saturday in May. Raise Kane, winner of the Gotham, and Scooby Quando, runner-up in the John Battaglia Memorial. And if you don't think Ben Colebrook can train a good horse, think again. Limousine Liberal, who we talked about, multiple Greatest Stakes winner. And then don't forget, it was Nick's Go who won the Grade 1 Claiborne Breeders' Futurity, saddled and trained by Ben Colebrook. So, Ben, I know you know what you're doing around these good horses, and I just can't thank you enough for the time. And, man, go get it done.
Thank you very much. Yep, good horses make it easy.
Yeah, they certainly do. It's just like good players make a coach look good, and Ben Colebrook is one hell of a coach. Ben, appreciate it, my friend. Good luck.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, Ben Colebrook. Yeah, people forget about that. When Nick's Go won the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity at 2, Ben Colebrook was the trainer. Of course, Brad Cox took over, and Nick's Go went on to be Horse of the Year, and we know how good he turned out to be. But fantastic stuff. Good luck to Ben moving forward on that road to the Kentucky Derby. All right, coming up next, I'm going to take a look back at the career of the great Hall of Famer Beholder, and I'll give you an update as to what she's doing right now. I'll be joined by Ned Toffey, the general manager at Spendthrift, to fill you in on those details. But first, it's time for your Legends of the Turf, a short commercial break, and then Ned Toffey.
This is the story of an amazing thoroughbred who indisputably left his hoofprints firmly embedded in the documented annals of the American turf. He was iron-legged, stout-hearted, and spelled courage with a capital C. When he passed away at the age of 21 on June 24, 1962 at Hagyard Farm near Lexington, Kentucky, where he'd stood at stud for his owners, the Bieber Jacobs stables, a racing legend had gone his way. He was the son of equestrian out of Stopwatch by On Watch, was bred by the venerable trainer Max Hirsch, and was owned for a time by King Ranch. In 7 years of racing from 1943 through 1949, he won 35 races and earned $918,485 for owner Mrs. Ethel D. Jacobs, and was the world's all-time leading money winner until supplanted by Citation in 1950. In the span of those unforgettable 7 racing seasons, the durable veteran started 131 times, and in addition to the aforementioned 35 wins, he had 35 seconds and 28 thirds in the money 96 times out of 131 starts, most of those being in the country's leading handicap or stakes races. At the age of 2, he had 3 starts in a maiden race and 2 nondescript claiming events, all those while racing in the spangles of the King Ranch, for whom he earned a nary a nickel and never finished better than 7th. An arguably forgettable start in racing for sure. On June 2, 1943 at Belmont Park in his 3rd start, he was haltered by trainer Hirsch Jacobs for $1,500. Jacobs had claimed him for his wife. In the balance of that juvenile season, he won 4 minor races while earning a composite $16,000. Out of 28 starts as a 2-year-old, his biggest win was on November 10th in the Republic of Peru Handicap at Jamaica, for which he earned a paltry $3,440. He started in 10 claiming races that year in the colors of the Jacobs stable. At the age of 3, he started 29 times, won 3, and placed 15 times, while earning slightly over $36,000. By this time, he had graduated from the claiming ranks and had won the Bolingbroke Handicap at Jamaica, but his best efforts were seconds in the Romer Handicap and the Wood Memorial. At 4, this unlikely budding star began to bloom with 9 wins and 19 starts, earning $225,000. At the age of 5, he won 8 of 20 starts and earned nearly $239,000. At 6, he was 7 for 19, banking nearly $300,000. At 7, he won 4 of 11 while earning $95,000. And in his final year of racing at the age of 8, he started 5 times and had a 2nd and 2/3, picking up about $7,000. When he reached the handicap age of 4, he shunned neither distance nor weight. In that year of 1945, the last time the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series, by the way, he won, amongst others, the Saratoga Cup at 1 3/4 miles while toting 126 pounds, and the Pimlico Cup Handicap at 2.5 miles while packing 128 pounds. In succeeding years, he carried up to 134 pounds and over 126 pounds 18 times. Among his wins were in the Rancocas, Greylag, Brooklyn, Butler, Continental, Saratoga Cup, Westchester Handicap, Riggs Handicap, Whitney, Edgemere, Manhattan, New York, and Gallon Fox Handicaps, the Metropolitan, Questionnaire, Massachusetts, Sussex, and Aqueduct Handicaps, and the Belmont Gold Cup. Racing analysts no doubt point to his victory in the Gold Cup at the age of 6 when he stormed from behind to whip Natchez, Armed, Assault, Phalanx, Endeavor, and Ensueño as his single greatest win. He stood at stud in Kentucky for a few years and in California with excellent success. This absolutely remarkable legend of the turf, a true darling of the racing public, who graduated from the ignominious bottom rung of the claiming ladder to unparalleled greatness, was none other than Stymie.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
Perennial leading consigner Eddie Woods is off to another fast start in 2023.
New Grange takes the San Pasquale, but Hopkins is too strong, finishing up powerfully to win the Palos Verdes, and it's Newgate to score by about a head. Reincarnate to take the sham. It's Rocket Can to win the Holy Bull.
Additional 2023 stakes winners include Occult, Lane Way, and Sharar, who took the Jumeirah Derby in Dubai. Find your next winner at the Eddie Woods consignment at OBS March. Visit eddywoods.com.
Racing fans, come see Top Fillies and Mares this Saturday in the Grade 1 $500,000 Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. Our supporting feature is the Grade 2 San Carlos Stakes, so come join the fun with first post time for a 9-race card at 12:30 p.m. Be sure to mark Saturday, April 8th on your calendar as the Grade 1 $750,000 Run Happy Santa Anita Derby will highlight a tremendous day of racing that'll also include 5 other stakes, including the Grade 2 Santa Anita Oaks, the Grade 2 Charles Whittingham, and the Grade 3 Monrovia. That's all on Santa Anita Derby Day, Saturday, April 8th. Don't miss the first coast-to-coast Pick 5 each weekend. It's a $1 minimum bet with a player-friendly 15% takeout covering 5 races from Santa Anita and Gulfstream Park. And fans, get your weekend rolling by joining us on any Friday, as we'll have free admission and parking, as well as $3 beers and $5 margaritas. Just east of Pasadena in Arcadia, Santa Anita. It's the great race place.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
It's a turn for home, and right now it's all Beholder. She hugs the rail and goes for home. Whip is coming out now, though, on Beholder. Put away, tries to hold on. Here's Executive Privilege. Beholder and Executive Privilege coming through the stretch together. Beholder and Garrett Gomez. Executive Privilege and Rafael Biaramo. They starting to shift round. It's Beholder on the inside, holding on. Beholder's going to go all the way. And Beholder and Garrett Gomez have won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile finish. Executive Privilege shifted her ground, finished up second, and then came Greening of Julia in third.
Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, back with you here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. That, of course, was Trevor Denman with the call of the 2012 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, won by Beholder, the first of 11 Grade 1 victories in her Hall of Fame career. And who knew at that point where things would end up? We knew that she was special, but we didn't know how special she would become and the things that she would overcome throughout her career that just made her what she truly was. They called her Queen Bee, and now I know why, because you look back on her resume and you see those 11 Grade 1 wins, but you also see all of the other victories 18 for 26 lifetime, $6.1 million in earnings. And today she is remembered with the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita, one of two incredible distaffers being remembered on this Saturday afternoon. Of course, the Azeri Stakes being run down at Oaklawn as well. Ned Toffey is the general manager at Spendthrift Farm. They, of course, the owners of Beholder. And Ned is with me now. Ned, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really excited to look back on Beholder's career. I thought this was the perfect time to do it, considering that we do have the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita later today. But when you hear the name Beholder, Ned, what are some things that immediately come to mind for you?
For me, the race that really stands out is her Pacific Classic. But she gave us so many great memories, and she was just a special horse. I think when you're in the midst of all of that happening, I'm not sure you really stop and appreciate how special a horse you've got. But especially looking back, and as you say, 11 Grade Ones and just so many great races, and people love to talk about the Songbird Beholder. That was an all-timer. Any one of those Breeders' Cup races. For me, it's always been the Pacific Classic.
Yeah, that Pacific Classic was something else. It was breathtaking, and it was, it was one of those performances that, of course, it came against the boys, but it's one of those performances, Ned, that legends are made of, right?
Yeah, it really was, and I think I remember Mr. Hughes thinking that he always felt like he had a very, very good filly. I think at that point he sort of finally admitted that he really had something truly, truly special. You just don't see races like that very often. I think that was absolutely probably the best day of her career, best day of her life. There weren't very many horses probably that ever run that would have beaten her on that day. I mean, she was just so good and so sharp at that time, and it was an incredible race. But a sub 2 minute mile and a quarter, and a move that has to rival the great moves that we think of, Secretariat's Preakness and a Rossie's Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and a handful of others. It's just not very often that you see a horse at that point in the race take off and explode the way she did, and that one still gives me chills.
B. Wayne Hughes, who of course is now deceased, but B. Wayne was alive for that entire run with Beholder, and I know how much she meant to him, and it was always great to see the smile on his face whenever I would have the chance to bring her name up with him in a conversation, whether it was privately or on air. He just kind of lit up, and I know Eric Gustafson, his son-in-law, Mark Toothaker, who's part of the team, the four of you would always be together at each and every one of her races. What was the ride like, Ned, for you personally and for the entire team?
I think for the whole team, it was just a great experience. Like I said, I'm not sure you really appreciate how special some of these horses are when you're in the middle of their careers. But she really spoiled us because you sort of came to expect a really good performance. Not very many horses are able to be that consistent, that consistently, let alone that consistently great. So I think it was something that sort of brought the whole farm together. We purchased her as a yearling for $180,000, which is, I don't mean this to sound the wrong way, but I would say the majority of horses that we buy are we pay significantly more than that for. But she's head and shoulders the best horse we've ever owned, and so the fact that we were able to acquire her at sale, and she came through our program from then on and did what she did was just, it was something that everybody was in the program, everybody was able to enjoy. And, I think Wayne had done a lot of things in racing by that point in his career. And he'd had some really, really good horses and won Breeders' Cup and ran fourth by that. I think at that point had run fourth in the Derby once or twice. Had done some really good things, but I think, that was, he had not had a truly, truly special horse until her. And we were all really we were so happy we were able to get Wayne that experience. And it was just fun, when a guy, whether you work for him or you know him or not, when you see a guy who's put into the sport as much as he's put in from every angle, from the racing side, from the breeding side, he just done so much. So it was great to see him be rewarded and be able to just really, really enjoy it. I will tell you a kind of a funny story. One of the, even after she was retired, he was really pretty well able to continue to enjoy her because he had Rick Porter, who of course owned Songbird and had an epic race to finish Beholder's career in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And Wayne, shortly after that, was in the process of remodeling a home here at Spendthrift, which he eventually moved into. And the downstairs bathroom is done in a Songbird Beholder motif, so two of the walls there's a giant photo of the finish of Beholder winning by a nose, and when you'd open the door, there'd be a recording of the race that would come on, and Songbird and Beholder's halters are hanging in there in shadow boxes and so on. And when Rick came to visit, Wayne could not wait to show him his bathroom. And Rick, I'm not sure what he thought going in there, but I'm pretty sure Rick still is convinced that Songbird pulled that one out. But it was something that it got so much enjoyment from.
Did you say that when you opened the bathroom door, a replay of the race would start playing?
You would actually open the door and turn on the light, and there's a little picture frame. And as soon as that light switch went on, the call of the race would start as they were loading them into the gate. So gave you something to do while you were in there.
That's the greatest bathroom of all time.
Oh, absolutely, especially if you're a Beholder fan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe not so much for Rick Porter, but certainly for all the Beholder fans out there. And I can tell you there are plenty of Beholder fans even to this day, Ned. I threw out a poll question with the Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn and the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita today. If the two of those horses were in the same race, Azeri and Beholder, which Hall of Famer are you going to go with? And 81% of HRRN Nation is on Beholder right now, which to me is shocking because their resumes are so incredibly similar. I thought that voting would be closer, but Beholder has her legions of fans.
Well, I think 81% of your fans are extremely intelligent. That's one of the great things about our sport. I think in any sport you get to, it's an argument you can never settle, right? You can compare horses or teams or individuals from different eras, and talk about who would win, and that's kind of the fun part. Is there is no right answer, and those are fun debates to have.
Well, we know Post 68 would always beat South Berkshire, so there's no debate there. Little inside joke going back to the days when we played baseball together. Well, almost together. You were a couple of years ahead of me.
Yeah, well, that you're kind in saying a couple of years. I think it was more than a couple of years ahead of you. But yeah, we definitely walked some of the same baseball fields in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, we certainly did. What is Beholder up to right now?
So, Beholder has been bred back to Jackie's Warrior, who's a first-year horse for us, and obviously fans will remember him. Really, the best sprinter, arguably the best sprinter in the country over a couple of years. He always seemed to, unlike Beholder, Breeders' Cup was not always his day, but just, a remarkable horse, remarkable sprinter. So far we haven't had the success with her as a broodmare that we would have liked. She was bred to Uncle Mo and Curlin in her first couple of years. Have not gotten certainly nothing approaching what Beholder was. We've got a Warfront filly now that is won in her, I believe it's her third start on the turf, and is really, the light seems to have really gone on since she won her race, her last start. So we're looking for more from her. She, unfortunately, this was the first year she did not have a foal. She was, and it was, she picked a bad year to decide not to have a foal because she was bred to Gun Runner, and just did not catch that year. But she's really been very, very good reproductively. She's got a 2-year-old filly by our sire Bolt Doro. And I know that that's going to end up being a good racehorse because Mr. Hughes insisted that we do that mating. So, and that filly is down in Ocala with Raul Reyes, and he feels like that she may be the most athletic, most talented of the group so far. So we'll look for good things from her, but so far they've all stayed right here in the racing stable, and will work for the home team. So sometimes it takes mares a couple of years to get things figured out, and for us breeders to figure out what works best with them. So and that was kind of the approach with Jackie's Warrior. Was we had tried a couple of sort of classic type sires in Uncle Mo and Curlin, and not had, those are wonderful sires. They make a lot of sense on paper with Beholder, but, we took the approach of trying to put a little bit more speed into her. And I always think of her as a very, very fast filly. Of course, she also won at 1 1/4 miles. I think she's a filly who was so talented. She could have been a champion sprinter. And again, not many horses that have run a sub 2-minute 1 1/4 miles over the years. So, but we sort of went a different route and tried to inject a little bit more speed into her with Jackie's Warrior this year. So we will eagerly await the results there and keep our fingers crossed.
Well, Ned Toffey, general manager at Spendthrift, I know so many of our listeners are jealous that you get to show up to work every day and you get to look at Beholder anytime you want. I know that she must have plenty of visitors that come to see her, and as I mentioned, she still has plenty of fans out there. So, man, I appreciate the visit. Thanks for looking back on her career, and thanks for the update on what's happening with her right now.
Absolutely. Anytime, Mike. Good to talk to you.
All right, buddy. Ned Toffey here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. When I come back, it is time for Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman, and then I'll get you ready for hour number 2, which is loaded. It includes an interview with Todd Pletcher, Tim Yakteen, and so much more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
The YMCA is just a starting line, for the true self blooms only when we find our purpose, what makes us tick below the surface. My why is diversity and unity, a safe space in my community, living with sincerity, giving every day my everything. With my why, I stand strong, seen and supported all along. It's a million faces in a mirror, and everyone belongs. Find your why. Learn more at ymca.org for a better us.
Hi, this is jockey Brian Hernandez. For me, there's no bigger thrill than crossing the finish line in front, and nobody captures the excitement of our sport like Horse Racing Radio Network. Each week, HRRN brings you exclusive talk shows, podcasts, and in-depth conversations with the biggest names in racing, jockeys, trainers, owners, and more. Plus, HRRN is committed to helping disabled riders through their support of the PDJF. So climb aboard a winner today by visiting horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
Last weekend was the busiest thus far for the 2023 Derby hopefuls. Let's start at Gulfstream Park, where 2-year-old champ Forte returned to the races in a big way. He stalked an honest pace in the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth before making his move nearing the far turn, ultimately drawing away to beat a good field by 4.5 lengths. Rocket Can, Cyclone Mischief, and Mage rounded out the top 4. Sounds like the Florida Derby on April 1st is Forte's next target. Santa Anita hosted the Grade 2 San Felipe, and Graded Stakes winner Practical Move took on recent maiden winners Hijazi, Go Rocket Ride, and Skinner. Experience proved beneficial as Practical Move was strongest in the lane, pulling away to an impressive score. He's already got enough points for the Kentucky Derby, but likely will race once more before then in the Santa Anita Derby on April 8th. A big field of 14 contested the Grade 3 Gotham at Aqueduct, and they caught a muddy and sealed racetrack for the 1-mile test. A fast early pace dashed the chances of the speed, and the closers benefited big time. Ben Colebrook's Ray's Cane was a beast in the lane, eventually crossing the wire 7.5 lengths ahead of up-and-coming Slip Mahoney for the easy win. And at Turfway Park, the John Battaglia Memorial offered 20 Derby points to the winner. Jockey Sonny Leone guided outsider congruent to the impressive score, but he'll likely need a few more points to assure himself a run for the Roses. Can Sonny Leone do it again? This week's focus shifts to Tampa Bay Downs and the Grade 2 Tampa Bay Derby. Todd Pletcher trainees Tapit Trice and Shesterkin invade from their South Florida base and look like the main players in the mile and a 16th affair. A full field of 12 was entered. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
Spendthrift Farm introduces new for 2023 Classic winner Mo Donegal. A leading 2-year-old of his class, Mo Donegal won the Grade 2 Remsen Stakes to close out his juvenile campaign before going on to win the Grade 2 Wood Memorial and Grade 1 Belmont Stakes as a 3-year-old, joining Nyquist as Classic winners by Uncle Mo.
And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Mo Donegal became the first horse this century to capture New York's prestigious Remsen at 2 and Wood Memorial at 3. Mo Donegal, the newest Classic winner, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Go Rocket Ride, ran well in the San Felipe despite his lack of experience. Look for further improvement in the Santa Anita Derby on April 8th. Number 4, Practical Move, the San Felipe winner continues to improve. He's hard to fault.
Number 3, Instant Coffee, looked great in winning his last couple starts with an exciting closing kick. Number 2, Arabian Night, undefeated former Baffert trainee, has a spotty work pattern since his last win. Look for him in the Arkansas Derby on April 1st. And number 1 is Forte. The 2-year-old champ looked great in the Fountain of Youth. Next stop, the Florida Derby on April 1st. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
And the road to the Kentucky Derby continuing to wind down. We edge ever closer to the first Saturday in May. Now just 56 days, 8 hours, 45 minutes, and 11 seconds until that Run for the Roses. Should be fantastic. And it looks like Forte has asserted himself as the horse to beat with that dominant win in last weekend's Fountain of Youth. His trainer, Todd Pletcher, is coming up at 9:40 Eastern. Stay tuned for that interview and so much more in hour number 2, which comes your way next, right after this 10-second pause for station identification and your Visit Barbados racing update. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
$50 Kentucky Derby points await the winner of today's Grade 3 Tampa Bay Derby, and no trainer has been better over the previous 42 runnings than Hall of Famer Todd Pletcher, who seeks a 6th win in the race later today. Pletcher is represented by 8-5 morning line favorite Tapit Trice and 9-2 second choice Shesterkin in the 12-horse field. 3-year-old fillies are in the spotlight one race prior to the Tampa Bay Derby, with Klaravich Stable's Free Look expected to attract plenty of money from bettors for trainer Chad Brown. Last year's Kentucky Oaks winner Secret Oath renews her rivalry with Clairiere in the Grade 2 Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn, while a talented field of 8 fillies and mares will square off in the Grade 1 Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. And that's your Visit Barbados Racing Update, brought to you by Barbados Tourism. Learn more at visitbarbados.org.
If you've been waiting to discover that sweet spot where peace of mind meets the time of your life, then it sounds like you've been waiting on Barbados. You've been waiting to experience a meal that makes you book a flight to have it again. You've been waiting for adventure in the sun, from the majesty of horse racing and polo to the thrill of surfing our playful waves. From the moment you set foot on the island, you will realize Barbados is exactly what you've been waiting for. Visit jetblue.com/Barbados for special vacation packages.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride here this morning. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, my conversations with trainer Ben Colebrook or Ned Toffey from Spendthrift Farm, all you have to do is head back to the website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to all of our podcasts of every show at your leisure, horseracingradio.net. You can also do that by searching Horse Racing Radio Network on every major podcast platform, including Podbean and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. However you get your podcasts, make sure you're tuning in whenever you get some time, and appreciate you being along for the ride here this morning. Throughout the poll question, actually there were 4 separate poll questions this morning, and some of the results I find extremely surprising. I did not expect them to go this direction. With the Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn today and the Beholder Mile at Santa Anita honoring 2 of the greatest distaffers of all time, I thought it would be fun to take some matchups and see which way you might go if these horses were in the same race together. And that is one of the topics I'm going to bring up with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin at 10:30 Eastern on I Ask, They Answer. And so far, in the matchup between Beholder and Azeri, 84% of you voting for Beholder. And I guess I can see that. I also think Beholder would be my choice. I laid out the reasons why in the opening segment of today's show. But 84-16 seems like a ridiculous margin there, considering the 2 Hall of Famers had almost identical careers. Lady Secret versus Monomoy Girl. 52.6 of the votes for Lady Secret, 47.4 for Monomoy Girl. That one is closer than I expected. I thought more of you would be in the Lady Secret camp. Zenyatta Personal Ensign, 78%. Zenyatta obviously has so many fans out there. 78% voting for Zenyatta over Personal Ensign. I think I'm taking Personal Ensign in that matchup. You forget how courageous she was at Churchill Downs that day and throughout her entire career. Rachel Alexandra and Winning Colors, 78% saying Rachel over Winning Colors. So there's a big margin there. The closest one, Lady Secret and Monomoy Girl, which again may be a little bit surprising. You can continue to cast your votes at HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and that's what Will has done. He says he'll take Zenyatta, the best filly on the West Coast. He'll take Winning Colors, who beat the boys in the Derby. Monomoy Girl, considering her record of 14 wins, 3 losses in her 17 starts, and he'll take Beholder because of her Breeders' Cup success. Yeah, 3 Breeders' Cup wins to Azeri's 1 Breeders' Cup win. But remember, Azeri took on the boys in the Breeders' Cup Classic in her final start. So, and that was a loaded field that was won by Go Sapper that year. But keep the votes coming. I'll update them again as I get time here throughout the show. But hour 2 is extremely busy. It kicks off with Justin Mustari, who is the winner of the NHC in 2021. He took time yesterday to join Bobby Neuman on our Betting with Bobby show. We'll fill you in on that story here in just a minute. Tim Yakteen will join me at 9:20 to look back on his big win in the San Felipe last weekend with Practical Move. And Todd Pletcher going to be with me at 9:40. Actually, he joined me yesterday for a conversation that you're going to hear coming up at 9:40. He'll look back on Forte, and he'll look ahead to today's Tampa Bay Derby, where he has the 2 morning line favorites. James Scully will be with me at 10 o'clock Eastern for the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly stroll through racing history at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale and Tim will be here for I Ask, They Answer. Well, Justin Mustari, as I mentioned, won the NHC in 2021. After day number 1, which took place yesterday, he finds himself in 271st position. He is $93 behind the leader, who, after day 1, is Francis Bustani. The 72-year-old amassed a bankroll of $149.40, and he is in control right now, but a long way to go until we get to the finish line there. And if you're in 271st place after day 1, doesn't sound very good, but there are 779 entries in this year's NHC. So can he make up $93 on Francis and on the rest of the field? We'll find out. We'll see. Going to need some long shots here on day number 2. But yesterday, Justin took time to visit with Bobby Neuman on our Betting with Bobby show, and here's what Justin had to say about winning in 2021.
This weekend is the National Handicapping Championship out in Las Vegas, and we're pleased now to be joined by a gentleman who won this event just 2 years ago, Justin Mustari from Des Plaines, Illinois, back to try for his second NHC victory. Justin, thanks for taking the time, my friend.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, you know, when you won this 2 years ago, first of all, the first place prize was over $700,000. You're a younger guy. You're in your 20s. I think you're the youngest NHC champion to date. What does $700,000 plus do as far as changing your life?
Yeah, it definitely changed my life. I had the opportunity to buy a house about 7 months ago, and that down payment that I put in the house was a big help with that winnings for sure. And I recently got engaged a couple of weeks ago, so it's definitely changed my life completely. Being 27 years old and winning that kind of money it was definitely awesome. But I'm hoping to make sure that money isn't all spent before I'm 30. So making sure I'm hoping to be able to set myself up for my kids or my future with some of that money.
Speaking of Any Given Saturday, you and I actually met on just Any Given Saturday at Gulfstream Park a few months back when you were just out there with your fiance playing the races. Do you play the races regularly, or are you strictly a tournament player?
I would say Gulfstream is definitely what I would consider playing regularly. I don't get to play Wednesday, Thursdays usually because of work, but I do follow a lot of the times. I wouldn't say I bet every day. I'm still kind of a smaller bettor. I still don't feel completely comfortable doing that day-to-day basis. But, yeah, once it comes to the contest, that's where once you put all your chips in, you've got to be ready to roll.
Well, of course, I don't know if you would call it the World Championship or the World Series or the Super Bowl as far as horse betting goes. There are a lot of big tournaments out there these days, but the NHC is certainly right there at the top of the list. What is the format for the NHC this year? What tracks do you guys get to play, and when do you learn what races you can handicap?
Yeah, so the format's different than just day-to-day betting. So we're going to be given basically a bankroll each day, and it's going to be $2 mythical win and place bets. So we're going to get Friday is the first day, which is tomorrow. We will get 8 mandatory races that the committee is going to decide which 8 races based on Gulfstream, Tampa, Aqueduct, Santa Anita, Laurel, and Fairgrounds. So they're going to give us the 8 races that we all have to be playing in the contest, and then they're going to give us 10 optional races for the day. So basically 18 races we're going to bet tomorrow, and then that would be the same thing on Saturday. And then obviously the goal for just about everyone is to make it to past that cut line, which would be to Sunday, and the top 10% makes it to Sunday. So that would be, there's roughly 700 guys this year, so top 70 will make it to Sunday, and 70th place is the cut line, which that's what you get paid at. So that would be, I think, last 70th place would be $10,000. So that's kind of the goal, is to get into that $10,000 or 10% range, and once you're in that range, then you can kind of fire away and try to get into the top 10% of that day, which would be considered the final table. So the top 10 guys at the final table will have, I think it's 7 mandatory races that they'll play at the final table. And that was a lot of fun for me. Everyone in the contest room gets to see your plays. So once you make it to the final table, there's a good 20 to 45 minutes in between each race at the final table. And it's kind of like a World Series of Poker type format where you can watch this on TV. And so basically with 5 minutes to post, every player has to put their wager in. And the second the horses leave the gate, all of our picks are posted on the screen, and everyone in the ballroom will now know that I have the 5 horse. The other guy who's in second has the 6 horse, whatever the case is. And you can cheer for who you like at the final table.
Justin, is there any sort of a cap on payoffs in these? Can people who are behind fire at 50-1 shots and just try to make giant leaps really in a blink of an eye, or is there a limit to how much you can win on a race?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a limit. I believe it's 20-1. So I think it's $44 to win is the most you can come up with. And then to place, I believe it's $20 or $22 to place. So 64, somewhere around there, is the most you can win in one race. And for that reason exactly, you don't want someone who's just bombing away on a 90-1 shot who probably doesn't even like the horse anyway, to just taking the chance that, hey, this is the only thing that's going to get me in contention. So, yeah, they kind of make a cap at 20-1, and there was times where you're playing horses above 20-1, but it is what it is. You still like the value there and figure, hey, in a contest like this, if you can get $64, even though you should have got $80, that's huge in points for a contest like this.
This may be just the degenerate in me asking this question, but aside from the $2 win place wagers that go toward the contest, how much other gambling is going on, horse playing, from players in that room? Are people sitting there and on their own playing pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, or are they really just about everyone there just focused on the win place wagers in this contest?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I've actually thought about that to try to see who is actually playing, and I think Horseshoe, where the event is, would probably like to know that stuff too, to see, hey, how many people are going to be betting additional on top of this. But it is a long couple days when you're playing 18 different races and a lot of optionals that you have to pick and choose and wait for opportunities to come up. So I wouldn't think between the whole room there's a ton of people betting on the side, but I'll tell you, our table that we sit at, I sit with a good group of 6, 7, 8 people, and we're playing pick fives, pick sixes, doubles, all that stuff, and it makes it a lot of fun when we're all cheering for each other too.
Speaking with Justin Mastari, who is trying to win the NHC for the second time in his young life. He won it 2 years ago back in 2021, and he's in Las Vegas right now for the 3-day event, which, of course, does start today. Justin, you mentioned these optional races. Just to clarify this, when you say there are 10 optional races, does that mean there are 10 other races that you have to play and you get your choice of them, or there are 10 additional races that are picked out that if you want to play any of them, you can?
Yeah, so optional meaning you have the option to pick any 10 races that is not one of the mandatory races that they chose from any of the tracks that I listed before. So basically my main tracks that I'm going to be playing is Gulfstream, Tampa. It's a nice weekend at Tampa, and depending on the field size, I'll probably play a little bit at Santa Anita as well, and then maybe here and there if I find some value at maybe Oak Lawn or Laurel or something that comes up. But yeah, my main concern will be, hey, I gotta find 4 or 5 optional races at Gulfstream that I can pick from and say, hey, I'm gonna try to find value here, or I'm gonna make sure and try to get a couple 5, 6 to 1 shots. And a lot of people play it different. Some people think that you got to play 10, 15 to 1 plus to really win the thing. But what the year that I won, I definitely had a mix of both. I had a lot of 5, 6, 7 to 1s. I didn't really have much under, let's say, 3 or 4 to 1. I did have one horse that went off at 3 to 1 that I bet that I definitely needed the points on. But yeah, it's coming up with those optional races where there's enough value to play. Because when you're playing $2 win in place, those even money shots are not getting you anywhere on that leaderboard. So it's just trying to come up with value and make sure that you get some points.
Justin, when you're able to go back, when you're planning for NHC weekend, do you look at the history of this contest and take a look at maybe what numbers the leaders had after day 1 and day 2 respectively in past years and kind of get an idea, I need to be somewhere around this to be where I want to be? Yeah, definitely. I think we all kind of have an idea or a number in our mind that says, hey, we need to come up with $70 to $100 each day. And usually that cutoff line to make it to the to Sunday is around $175 to, let's say, $185 after 2 days. So that's kind of the goal. Is, hey, let's try to get at least $70 on the first day. If we can get to 100 or just over, you're probably going to be in the top 50 already if you're at 100. So just putting yourself in a good position the first day is obviously extremely important. I'm an avid golfer. I've played golf for a long time. I play competitively and almost decided to try to do it professionally. And that's where I've learned a lot of the patience and just understanding of the game of, hey, you got to make sure and put yourself in the positions to make scores, to make birdies. But if you put a one double bogey or a triple into there, you're really going to screw it up for yourself. So just putting yourself in contention all the time and giving yourself opportunities is what you got to do here. Justin, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a busy weekend and you really got to get back to handicapping, but we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you'll come back another $700K richer this weekend.
Yep, that's the goal. So thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Justin Mastari trying to be the 2-time NHC champ. He won it 2 years ago, and he is out in Las Vegas right now taking part in this year's National Handicapping Championship.
And again, as I told you before that interview, Justin in 271st position going into day number 2 this afternoon, $93 behind the leader. We'll see if he can make that up. He'll need some long shots if he's going to do it. Coming up next, I welcome trainer Tim Yakteen as he looks back on his big win in the San Felipe with Practical Move, who some people thinking could be among the top horses to beat on the first Saturday in May. We'll see if Tim feels the same way. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up, and if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Perennial leading consigner Eddie Woods is off to another fast start in 2023.
New Grange takes the San Pasquale, but Hopkins is too strong, finishing up powerfully to win the Palos Verdes, and it's Newgate to score by about a head. Reincarnate to take the sham. It's Rocket Can to win the Holy Bull.
Additional 2023 stakes winners include Occult, Lane Way, and Sharar, who took the Jumeirah Derby in Dubai. Find your next winner at the Eddie Woods consignment at OBS March. Visit eddywoods.com.
This Healthy Horse Tip is brought to you by Kessmark. Spring in Kentucky is beautiful, but allergies can prove to be a real challenge for horses. Pollens and air pathogens can irritate a horse's airway, especially those coming from climates where spring begins much earlier, such as Florida, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Horses coming from the high desert of the West Coast can also have difficulty handling Kentucky's prime allergy season. Mucus, while considered normal by some, is not normal and serves as an incubator for fungus, bacteria, and other pathogens that will make a home in the airway if given the opportunity. Keeping an immune system in order and providing your horse with a clean airway through preventive measures such as feeding on the ground, wetting hay, clean shavings, and nebulizing products can all aid in reducing allergies and keep the immune system healthier to address the important things the body needs, such as athletic recovery. For more healthy horse tips, visit Kessmark.com or follow them on Twitter at Kessmark_equine. That's KESMARC_equine.
There's plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the championship meet with live racing Wednesday through Sunday. Don't miss the Triple Crown prep races, including the Fountain of Youth Stakes on March 4th and the Florida Derby Saturday, April 1st. Enjoy the races outdoors from the Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms, offering a premium view of the races. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're coming to the quarter pole. It's Hijazi in front. Fort Bragg, practical move, looking for a spot, finding it along the inside. Skinner coming with a wide bid. They're at the top of the stretch. Hijazi, practical move, cuts the corner now to challenge him in second. 3 back to Fort Bragg and Skinner. Down at the rail, Go Rocket Ride is running on valiantly, but it's practical move coming past the 16th pole in command. And practical move, another big effort from him under Ramon Vasquez, wins the San Felipe. Go Rocket Ride second. Skinner a closing third. Then Hijazi and Fort Bragg. The running time 142.01 seconds.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna with you on this Saturday morning. That was Frank Miramati with the call of last weekend's San Felipe, won by practical move for trainer Tim Yakteen. And even though Forte got much of the headlines last weekend, and I think rightfully so, with that dominant win in the Fountain of Youth, don't sleep on practical move. He caught a lot of people's attention with that huge win, and I know that that is music to the ears of Tim Yakteen, who is with me now live from Southern California. Tim, good morning.
Hey, Mike, good morning.
What an effort by practical move, huh? Just tremendous.
Yeah, we're very proud of him.
What did you make of that effort?
Well, he's a gifted horse, and he really matured over the winter time. We basically had somewhat of a game plan mapped out basically from the time Pierre and Leslie bought him at OBS. and everything's sort of fallen into place. Generally, that doesn't happen in horse racing, but everything's sort of fallen in place, and we're very proud of him. He's just very gifted. I'm very lucky to have him.
What's different about him now at 3 than when he was running as a 2-year-old?
Well, young horses, you always expect them to mature and get stronger, and he was a big horse, from the get-go. He was, just under 1,200 pounds, so he was always a big horse. And when you're running him early and they're that big, it takes him a little while to get an understanding how to use his body. He always demonstrated he had raw talent. And the nice thing is that we saw the progression when we went around 2 turns, and that's what we were looking for.
Considering the fact that he is so big and still growing into that frame, I would imagine, if all things being equal, Tim, and things go according to plan the way you hope they will, he gets to the Kentucky Derby, a big field. Can that help a horse being so robust?
I don't know if it can help him. The concern always is Churchill has changed their gate, and the gate's a little bit smaller, so I actually feel that may be slightly to a big horse's disadvantage. They can't leave the gate as easily as some of these slighter built horses, So I don't know if it's an advantage, but it would be nice to get there and get there in the shape that we're in right now, and get a fair shot leaving there. I think it would be a pretty exciting event.
I asked Ben Colebrook this same question in the first hour of the program, but now considering the fact that Practical Move has plenty of points to be in the Kentucky Derby starting gate, does that in any way alter your approach to what you're going to do with him over the next couple of months?
No, we'll still stay on target. I think what it does is it takes a little bit of pressure off of you, because if you're trying to make the Kentucky Derby and you want to validate, you just don't want to show up. I mean, you're going there to win. You're not going there for the event. At least that's not what my and our goal is. We're going there to win, and so it does take a little bit of pressure off. But overall, you still are sticking to your game plan.
After the race, you sent out a tweet and congratulated the owners, which I thought was a wonderful move because, let's face it, sometimes the owners kind of get lost in the shuffle when we start, talking to all the trainers leading up to the Kentucky Derby, and I'm so glad you did that. Tell me more about the owners of Practical Move.
Pierre and Leslie, they've been in the racing industry a long time. They predominantly have raced quarter horses. They've run in the All-American. I don't know how many owners have run in the All-American and are possibly going to have a starter in the Kentucky Derby. So obviously those are 2 marquee races. I obviously started out at Los Alamitos, so my ties and my understanding to the All-American are very real. I think they're very much on par with the Kentucky Derby. If you're in that industry, it's the race that as a trainer you want to win.
Practical Move was purchased from the OBS April sale for $230,000. Did you have a hand in that decision, Tim?
Not at all. Pierre and Leslie, they worked that sale. They worked their tails off, and they gave me a call and said, "Hey, we bought a couple really nice horses. We'd like to send them to you," because the year before, I want to say they had a distorted humor colt that they were planning on sending, if I recall correctly, and things didn't work out. So it was nice. They've got a great eye for a horse, and they bought a Gervin filly, Blessed Touch, that ran 3rd the other day in the Santa Isabella, and they bought Practical Move.
Yeah, pretty special. And I see when you look at the breeder, Chad Brown and Head of Plains Partners, but the trainer, Tim Yakteen, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. We'll keep it in. Let's try and keep it in the family in the racing industry, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, people might not realize that point either, that with the breeding of Practical Move, which is kind of cool. What's next, Santa Anita Derby?
Yeah, that would be the logical spot for us. That's the plan.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the other horses that you're working on getting to the Kentucky Derby, and many of those coming from the barn of trainer Bob Baffert, who is ineligible to get Derby points with his runners and participate again this year. So let's talk about those, including Reincarnate, who was third in the Rebel for you. Tell me a little bit more about him.
You know, he's come out of his race in great shape. We pulled his work up a little bit. Worked him on Thursday because we had rain coming in California out here. We're getting rained on right now. We'll be running on a muddy track today. But anyway, he's doing super. We had a fantastic drill on Thursday, and all systems go. I haven't really dialed in yet on what our next race is going to be. I'll get another work into all of my group here, and then we'll just sort of make the final decision and go from there.
And then 3 other horses that were behind Practical Move in the San Felipe last weekend. Hijazi was 4th, Fort Bragg was 5th, Mr. Fisk ended up finishing 6th. What's next for each of those horses?
Okay, so Fort Bragg, he's come back excellent. We'll probably consider Sunland for him, but that's not etched in stone. The other 2 horses that ran in that race would be off the Derby trail, and so they'll take another route. And then I still have Arabian Night and National Treasure.
Okay, tell me more about National Treasure. What's going on there?
So unfortunately, the day of the San Felipe, we had a quarter crack. It got a little moisture in there, and we got a little infection going. We've been dealing with rain, as I mentioned. It's been pretty persistent out here in California. The fortunate thing is that we got it all cleared up. He's back on the track. He's doing super, and just waiting for a good track to get a breeze into him. And then once we get a workout in him, I'll start dialing it in with Tom and see what direction we're going to go.
I'm talking with trainer Tim Yakteen here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Arabian Night is a horse that is high on most people's Derbies list, and I said Forte may have stamped himself as the one to beat, but before Forte returned, everybody was talking about Arabian Night. So what are you seeing from him? I know he worked, yesterday? Tell me a little more about him and where he's going.
Yeah, so he worked on Thursday. And, had really, really nice work. Very happy with his drill. Yeah, just one of those raw, talented, gifted individuals, you know. So having completely made a decision on where we're going with him, we'll get another work into him next weekend, and then sort of dial ourselves in. The nice thing is we have a number of options, and we're just going to pick the path that's going to fit our horses best and take it from there.
I think some people, if they were going to be concerned with anything with Arabian Night, it's the fact that his work pattern has been a little sporadic. So how do you put their mind at ease and say, we're still sitting with a major player?
Well, the one thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that I'm not, and my team, we're not going and attempting to make the Derby. We want to win the Derby. So if we're running, we're going to win. And simple as that.
Are there things, Tim, that's a great point too. Are there things that you learned from doing this last year with a couple of Bob's horses that you took over with, say, Taba and Messier, that's kind of helping you as you go down the road again this year?
I think as a horseman, you learn every day. And yes, I picked up a lot last year on that experience, but I have picked up a lot over the years, as an assistant and being back there, but to have your own name on the program, it's a different feeling. And, it's that feeling that you want. And I'm looking forward to it. And yes, to answer your question, as a trainer or as an individual that works in a barn, you're learning something new every day.
So what's the next start for Arabian Night?
As I mentioned, I haven't dialed anything in yet.
Yeah.
We'll plan on coming back next weekend. He's been a great workhorse, and so touch wood, he does what he always does well in the morning and flatter himself. And at that point, I think I'll start dialing in my canvas, and the picture will start becoming a little more clear.
Tim,
obviously I'm gonna try and keep my players separated as much as I can.
Well, yeah, that comes to my next point. As I was getting ready to do the interview with you, I was going through and I was writing down names of all the different 3-year-olds you're responsible for now. How on earth are you going to end up keeping all these horses separate? It's incredible.
Well, the nice thing is the country is offering us a number of options, and it's just a matter of picking the right race for the horse that we're going to target. So.
How about Carmel Road, who ran in the Gotham last week, didn't show up with his A game, still on the Derby trail, or are you going to take a different direction there?
No, we're going to take a different direction there. He drew the 5-post. I'm not making any excuses for him, but our hand was sort of forced. We had to stay up in there, and it just didn't pan out for us. He's a super nice horse. You're going to hear a lot about him, coming up in the late spring and during the summer. So. But nice horse, and we'll regroup.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people hearing a lot more from Tim Yakteen as we make our way down the road to the Derby over the next 56 days or so. Tim, I really do appreciate the conversation here this morning, and all the best moving forward. And I'm sure we'll catch up as we get closer to the first Saturday in May.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks for the time. Tim Yakteen here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. And, yeah, when I say that as I started going through and working on all of his 3-year-olds, my goodness, all of those horses coming from Bob Baffert and then his own horses. And, of course, Practical Move, just fantastic last week in the San Felipe. We'll see if he takes another step in the right direction in the Santa Anita Derby. But he's certainly going to be one of the horses to beat, if not the horse to beat. And then Arabian Night. Where do we see him again? Tim has not dialed in a spot yet. Will it be at Santa Anita? He said he's going to try and keep his horses separated. Maybe we see him ship eastward for an engagement back this way. A lot of things to be determined over the next 56 days, and Tim Yakteen, not the only trainer dealing with that. Todd Pletcher is too. You're going to hear from him when I come back. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
I'm here with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, how do you value a horse for insurance?
Well, Mike, it's easy to value a horse when purchased out of a public auction. The insured value would simply be the auction price. But insuring homebreds can be a little more involved.
How so?
Well, factors such as a stud fee, conformation, pedigree, sales and race records of siblings, even popularity of the stallion all come into play.
How closely do you work with owners in determining a horse's value?
Well, the owner has a pretty good idea of the horse's value, so generally it's just a matter of agreeing to the request and having the policy issued.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Joe Brown Nicholson at nicholsoninsurance.com or call 859-224-7080. That's 859-224-7080. Nicholson Insurance Agency. It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
This was a gem of a ride from Tyler Gaffleone. Endorse springs the upset and turns over Charge It to beat him a length and a half.
And Botanical, a perfect 3 4-3 on the synthetic. She crushes him in the Cincinnati Trophy.
Darley Stallion Medaglia d'Oro did it again. He doubled up this past weekend with that 1.5 length score by Endorsed in the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Mile, and Botanical potentially stamping her ticket to the Kentucky Oaks, winning her third straight in the Cincinnati Trophy at Turfway Park. Victories which make Endorsed and Botanical your Darley taking the reins performers of the week. Darley Stallion Medaglia d'Oro, the sire of 26 Grade 1 winners and $25 million yearlings or 2-year-olds since 2016, more than any other stallion. Learn more about $1 Million Medaglia d'Oro and all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And now the complexion changes. Schoolyard Dreams on the outside. Super Saver. Dominguez now gets busy. Odysseus will have to wait for another day. As they turn into the stretch, Schoolyard Dreams has straight to the lead. Toward the rail, Super Saver is there second. As they're into the stretch, it's Schoolyard Dreams, Super Saver. Odysseus on the outside. Far outside, here comes Gleam of Hope. Inside the final furlong, it's still wide open. Schoolyard Dreams. Odysseus is back running again. Down to the wire. Schoolyard Dreams. Odysseus, Schoolyard Dreams, and Odysseus ahead, Bob.
Well, that's Richard Grunder with the call of the 2010 Tampa Bay Derby. Odysseus with the victory that day. Kind of a weird race, right? You heard him in the call talking about him being done at one point in the race, pretty much. Would have to wait for another day, and then running again at the end. Came back on, won by a nose over Schoolyard Dreams. Super Saver was third. Super Saver for Todd Pletcher would go on and win the Kentucky Derby that year. Todd is in search of his 6th win in the Tampa Bay Derby later today. His 5 previous winners have not won the Kentucky Derby, but it was the horse that finished third in the Tampa Bay Derby that would give him that win in the Run for the Roses. Well, Todd also has a pretty good one in Forte, who won the Fountain of Youth last weekend. And Tim Yakteen, you heard him say in the last segment in that interview that they're not going to run in the Kentucky Derby. They're going to win the Kentucky Derby if they go. Well, in order to do that, you may have to take down champion Forte, who looked every bit the part of a Derby favorite last weekend. And Todd Pletcher took time yesterday to talk to me about Forte, talk to me about the Tampa Bay Derby, and then look ahead to the Run for the Roses. Well, Todd Pletcher is going to be busy on Saturday afternoon. He has a couple of horses going in the Tampa Bay Derby. Both of those are morning line favorites. He has the morning line favorite and the second choice on the morning line as he goes in search of a 6th win in that race. But last weekend, he sent out 2-year-old champion Forte. His 3-year-old debut was ultra impressive and provided him with a 4th win in the Fountain of Youth. And Todd, first of all, he looked every bit the part of a leading Kentucky Derby contender. What was your reaction as you were watching things unfold?
Well, I was really pleased going into the first turn that we were able to get the position that Irad and I had talked about trying to get, before the race. And he got jostled around a little bit at the start, but was able to kind of put himself in a good stalking spot, very similar to the way he positioned himself in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and the Breeders' Futurity. So I was very pleased when we got to the first turn the way we did, and then just traveling down the backside. My only concern was when they kind of show that they've got that head-on view down the backstretch, and kind of looked, and you could see he was in behind kind of a wall of horses. So I was just hoping he'd find a place to go. And eventually, when Irad was able to work him out into the clear, he just kind of had to sacrifice and go 5 wide to do it. But he had a lot of horse underneath him, and looked like he really accelerated nicely and kind of came to the finish line with his ears pricked. So it was everything that we were hoping for, but also kind of based on the way he had been training, it was what we were expecting.
What boxes were you hoping that he was going to check in that race, and did he check all of the boxes you wanted him to?
Well, we wanted him to show that he'd still maintained his form from his 2-year-old year, and like I said, based on the way he had been training, we felt very confident that he had improved since last year. and really we just wanted him to show. We wanted him to go over and behave well in the paddock and behave well in the paddock ring and the walk ring and the warm up and the gate and do all those things professionally like he always has. And then we wanted to see him perform the way he was performing and even then some. So I think to me he checked every box you'd like to see. He showed that he's improved from 2 to 3. Showed that the layoff was no concern. He handled, the environment really well, and it was a hot day, and he maintained his composure really well, and so yeah, I think it was everything that we could have hoped for.
Well, now that he's answered those questions, we know that the Fountain of Youth is not the ultimate goal. That will come on the first Saturday in May. What do you have to do now to make sure that over the next couple of months that everything goes the way you want it to go and that he's ready to peak on the first Saturday in May?
Well, the plan that we had talked about was running in the Fountain of Youth, evaluating how that goes, and then deciding if we want to come back in the Florida Derby or if we felt like we needed a little more time, the Bluegrass. And based on the way he handled everything at Gulfstream and the way that he's come out of the race so far, we're kind of leaning towards the Florida Derby. We like the idea of having 5 weeks after the Florida Derby, the Kentucky Derby. We like the idea of being able to stay in Florida a little bit longer with more reliable weather. And so that's kind of what we're thinking right now. Every indication so far is he's taken the race great, bounced out of it with good energy, and it's back training with enthusiasm. So we'll kind of put him on a program that will be a couple of decent breezes in between the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. But, we got a really good foundation as a 2-year-old. We got a really good comeback race. And so now it's just all about keeping our fingers crossed at all times and hoping he can stay healthy and stay on course.
Yeah, Todd, we've been waiting for a 3-year-old to step up and say, I'm here, I'm the one to beat on the first Saturday in May. And it's hard to imagine that Forte didn't do that on Saturday. And he did it emphatically, too. He looked the part. Do you believe that he's the one to beat, at least at this point?
Well, anytime you're this far out from the Kentucky Derby, you're just worried about everything, keeping him healthy and on course. But I felt like based on his emphatic score in the juvenile that he was the horse to beat leading into the Fountain of Youth. And, we had the benefit of watching him train, so we felt confident about that. But I think he certainly took another step forward towards being what everyone would define as the current divisional leader. And these things can change from week to week, from race to race. But right now, with his complete body of work and then the Fountain of Youth this year, I think certainly stamps him as the divisional leader right now.
Todd, you've brought so many of these top horses back, so many champions, 2-year-old champions back and brought them back at 3. Do you still get some anxious moments when they're going to the starting gate for that 3-year-old debut, or is it kind of old hat for you now?
No, I mean, look, those are the things you look forward to, and those are the things you get excited about, and just being fortunate enough to train a horse of this capability. That's why we do what we do, and naturally you get some butterflies when horses like this are going in the gate, and you just hope that they perform the way that they're able to, and so that's what's fun and exciting and rewarding when they do.
All right, let's turn our attention to the 43rd running of the Grade 3 Tampa Bay Derby. You're going to be in search of a 6th win. No other trainer has ever won that race more than twice. And if you do the math on it, Todd, you've won 14% of all the Tampa Bay Derbies ever run. Why has this race been so good to you?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, Tampa's a great place to prepare 3-year-olds. It's a good, reliable surface. Not all horses love it, but even in the case of Super Sabre, who was unable to win the Tampa Derby, it set him up really well for the Arkansas Derby, and then fortunately well for the Kentucky Derby. So, over the years we've taken a lot of horses through Tampa, even Always Dreaming in a maiden race, and Vino Rosso in an allowance race, and in addition to the Tampa Derby, we've had good luck getting horses a quality prep race at Tampa that's led on to bigger and better things. So it's positioned well on the calendar as a kind of penultimate prep, and I think that's why it's worked well for us.
Tappet Trice is the 8-5 morning line favorite. Exits that big win at Gulfstream where he drew off to beat allowance foes by 8 lengths. Very impressive. Tell me a little bit more about him and what you're seeing coming into this race.
Well, he's a super talented colt. I thought ran well in his debut despite being a little bit green and climbing from some kickback, as a lot of horses making their debut will do. Followed that up with a strong effort to break his maiden, and then, like you said, an impressive allowance win. The thing that impresses me about him is all of those races were at a 1-turn mile, and to me, this horse is crying out for more distance. And I think 2 turns and a mile and 16 is going to help, but I think a mile and an eighth, a mile and a quarter, even a mile and a half, Belmont type is the indication that he's giving us. So we're excited about getting him stretched out.
What does he show you that makes you think those added distances will be to his advantage?
Just watching him train, the way he finishes his works, the way he gallops out. He's a fantastic mover, very efficient galloper, and he's by Tappa, who's obviously had a ton of success in the Belmont, and he's out of a Dunkirk mare who. Dunkirk was a really well-bred, talented horse that we had that was second in the Florida Derby to Quality Road and actually second in the Belmont Stakes himself. So I just think with all that stamina in his pedigree and the way he moves, he's shown us that the further that he gets to go, the better he should get.
The horse he beat in that allowance race when he won by 8 was Shesterkin, your other horse in the Tampa Bay Derby. He's second choice at 9-2. You add blinkers to the package here today, so tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we feel like he's just kind of lost focus a little bit at times, and we did work him in blinkers last week, and we definitely felt like he was a little more locked in and just a little more focused on business. So felt like if we're going to give him an opportunity one more time to kind of prove that he belongs on the Derby prep trail, that he needs to take a step forward, and we're hoping the blinkers will help him do that.
And 2 chances to add a 6th Tampa Bay Derby win to his resume. Todd Pletcher is with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Todd, before I let you go, how about an update on your Sam F. Davis winner, Litigate? What's going on there?
We're kind of deciding between the Louisiana Derby and possibly the Wood Memorial. Talk to the guys at Centennial, and we'll firm it up. We like the idea of the mile 3/16 in Louisiana, and we also like the idea of going back to New York with him. So we're kind of just going to see how things unfold here the next couple of weeks, and looks like we'll probably take Kings Barnes to the Louisiana Derby and maybe Classic Catch to the Wood Memorial. So we're going to just try to figure out which direction to go with Litigate.
Yeah, Litigate kind of has that Louisiana pedigree too, right? He's a son of Blame out of a mine shaft mare. They both had success in New Orleans, so why not?
That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll find out, but he certainly looks talented too, and Todd Pletcher is as talented as they come when it comes to trainers in the sport of thoroughbred racing. Todd, I really appreciate the visit. I know you've got some other things to get to, so I'll let you go. All the best, my friend, and keep it rolling.
All right. Thanks very much.
Always fun to catch up with Todd Pletcher, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, just like Tim Yakteen and Ben Colebrook and all the trainers on the road to the Kentucky Derby now, just trying to keep their fingers crossed, hope everything goes well, stays on track, and still trying to figure out where they're going to go with some of these horses, keep them separated, and put them in the right spots and the best spots to have success. So my thanks to Todd for taking the time for that interview. Always fun to catch up with the Hall of Famer. When I come back, I'll take a look at a couple historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend, and I'll get you ready for hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and 2 of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. VetTix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals. Because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. 2 hours down, 1 to go. Well, almost 2 hours down. Got to take a look at some historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. I'll do that momentarily. It's going to be a busy third hour of the show. I'll fill you in on those details too. But if you missed any portion of the first couple of hours of the show, all you have to do is head back to the website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen at your leisure. You can also listen to the podcast on every major podcast platform. Well, there are a few dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. And we're going to start with yesterday. Happy anniversary to jockey Eddie Delahousse, who 30 years ago yesterday, March 10th, 1993, at the age of 41, recorded his 5,000th career win aboard Ackler in the 5th race at Santa Anita Park. He became the 14th rider in North American thoroughbred racing to reach that plateau. Today, March 11th, 1943, the anniversary of Man o' War, who after siring 350 foals that won over $3 million, the 26-year-old was retired from stud duty. Again, that was March 11th, 1943. And tomorrow, March 12th, 1966, the anniversary of Johnny Longden. It was in the last race of his 40-year career that Johnny Longden won the San Juan Capistrano Handicap at Santa Anita Park aboard George Royal. He retired with a then record number of victories, 6,032. Again, that was March 12th, 1966. And those are historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. A lot of great things happening, including the Tampa Bay Derby this afternoon. And you heard Todd Pletcher in the previous segment talking about his two runners. He has the two morning line favorites in that race. As you would expect, that the road to success in the Tampa Bay Derby is going to go through Todd Pletcher. So that is absolutely not surprising. I want to thank everybody who took time here over the first 2 hours of the show. And again, you still have one more hour to get in on the poll questions at HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. But so many of you taking time to weigh in and cast your votes there. The updated scoring, Beholder, 82% over Azeri with 18%. Monomoy Girl, 51% of the vote over Lady Secret. That's a shocker to me. Rachel Alexandra, 80% of the vote over Winning Colors, and Zenyatta, 68% of the vote over Personal Ensign. Another somewhat shocking result there with that poll question. All right, 2 down, 1 to go. When I come back, James Scully will join me for the TwinSpires Triple Play. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin will be here on another edition of I Ask, They Answer. If your local station is leaving us at this time, continue listening to the third hour of the show nationwide on Sirius 216, XM 204, in the Louisville, Kentucky market on ESPN 680 or at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 is next, right after I pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Street Sense, any given Saturday, down to the wire. It's Street Sense, any given Saturday, is right back at him. These two heads apart, too close to call. Might have been Street Sense in a fabulous race. Running time on the board, 1 minute, 43 seconds flat for the Tampa Bay Derby.
1 furlong to go. Azeri still there, and she's pulling away. Azeri by 3, and now by 4. She has left Imperial just reeling, and Bartamiga too much, way too late to get to the distant champion, Azeri.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
This race living up to its expected power as they come to the wire. There goes to the park. It's Beholder. I think she got her head down on the wire. Songbird, dogging, gambling all the way. The two of them right together.
Out in the center, Forte tries to overhaul Cyclone Mischief, who's very game, but Forte's very good. As a 3-year-old, he debuts with an easy victory in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Here's your 2-year-old champion. Here's Forte, geared down.
Now, here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Equine Forum, rolling toward the finish line with plenty more still ahead, including your TwinSpires Triple Play, which begins momentarily. Kurt Becker Stroll through racing history coming up at 10:20 and 10:30. I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans, turf rider Tim Wilkin. So a lot of things to get to. Want to remind you that if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the program, all you have to do is head back to the website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast at your leisure. You can do that on every major podcast platform as well. And you still have another hour to get in on the poll question this morning at HRRN on our Twitter feed and Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and I will try to pass along those results later in this third hour. But let's kick it off. It is this week's edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. And doing the honors this week is the man that you catch every Thursday on the Brisnet.com call-in show here on the network. It is James Scully. James, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Pleasure to be joining you. Another fantastic day of racing today.
Yeah, and you have selected 3 races for our listeners that they can play any way they would like to play them. We just tell them every week to go play them at TwinSpires.com. And the first one you've selected is at Oaklawn Park. It's race number 7. That is an allowance race, 1 1/8, and it's a big field. Should be an interesting race. I think there's a lot of ways to go in here. How'd you see it?
Yeah, I took a long look at this because these are some of my favorite kind of races where you have two horses on that are pretty solid favorites on the morning line, and Bet Diesel, who's 3-1, and Barber Road, that's 7-2. Those two horses, Mike, at Oaklawn Park are a combined over 15, and neither horse has won since 2021. And if you look at their lines, they're typically 5-1 or less very often, and they come up short. So I think both are a little bit vulnerable in that spot. And I wound up landing on number 4, Back Ring Luck. And this is a gelding that is shipping back into Oaklawn from the East Coast, but he has been to Oaklawn before. He shipped into Oaklawn a couple years ago off of a nice win and recorded a front-running victory in his lone appearance over the track going a mile and a 16th. And it's a situation where Back Ring Luck, he came back. He got claimed last November by Jacobson at Santa Anita. Got claimed off of a close third. He came back in his first race at Aqueduct in February, and that was like a stakes quality field. The winner of that race, Bourbonic, won the Wood Memorial a couple years ago. He's come back in good order this year for Pletcher. The runner-up, Sheriff Bianco, has earned triple-digit speed ratings in 4 of his last 5 starts. Either one of those, especially the runner-up, I think he'd be a real big favorite in this race. And so he improved off that. Back Ring Luck did. And one thing about him, Mike, is he strings wins together. You can see Back Ring Luck has 24 starts. He has 9 wins, 1 second, 2 thirds. 4 times in his career, he has come back off of a loss and won a race like he did last time. And 3 of those 4 times, he's strung together multiple wins in a row. So once he gets in form, he can really, like I said, run well. This is an entry-level allowance spot that I don't think is too difficult. And Back Ring Luck has very good positional speed, so I anticipate him either being first or second in the early stages and running a big race on the front end in race 7 at Oaklawn.
Yeah, James, I noticed he is 1-for-1 over the Oaklawn surface. I was going to say Oaklawn main track, but that's what they have at Oaklawn. But over that Oaklawn surface, he's a perfect 1-for-1, and the win does not show in the past performances because it came almost exactly 2 years ago, March 5th of 2021. That was an allowance optional claiming race. And it was a win, by the way, that came right after his maiden win at Churchill Downs, and it catapulted him to a start in the Santa Anita Derby that year in 2021. So I think they've always been somewhat high on this horse. At least they've taken their shots in some of the big moments with him, hoping that he could prove to be that caliber. He's not quite a grade 1 horse, but as you just pointed out, a very solid allowance campaigner.
Yeah, very solid. And he's a horse, obviously, like last year, there was a period from in the spring through the summer where he just wasn't in good form. But he has finally turned things around, and that last one was a very good confidence builder in my mind. That win you referenced at Oaklawn before came off a maiden $30,000 claiming win at Churchill.
Yeah.
So people thought he was too cheap that day, and I'm hoping they take the same attitude looking at this Penn National race because that was a very solid effort, even though it came at Penn National.
All right, good value, too. 10-1 on the morning line for Back Ring Luck, the selection in race 7 at Oaklawn for James Scully. That's pick number 1 for this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Let's head over to Tampa Bay Downs, where your next 2 selections will come from, race 7 and race 8. Race 7 is the $75,000 Columbia Stakes, 1 mile on the turf. Who wins this one?
Well, I'll just say that I think, there's the number 1 Freedom Trail is going to compete for favoritism, and, you got to respect it with eye rat or teeth. But I think the big favorite is going to be this Most Stash, number 9. And this is one of my bugaboos that I talk about from time to time, Mike. Horses that are like 1 for 4 or 1 for 5 in their career. I see this all the time. They come back off of long layoffs. They're non-winning types in essence. They might run second and third, but they don't win many races, and they come back off of layoffs in tough spots at short odds, and they're vulnerable. And that's the way I sort of looked at it with number 9, Most Stash. I wound up landing on number 10, Talk of the Nation. And this is a quality road colt. Made his first 2 starts on dirt, one on a good track at Aqueduct, and then ran in that allowance with Cyclone Mischief, who just ran third in the Fountain of Youth, and Litigate, who won the Sam F. Davis next out. But to me, his best surface is going to be grass. He's out of She's Not Here, who is a multiple Grade 2 turf winner. Lots of turf horses in this female family. And that allowance win on February 4th that Talk of the Nation exits his first turf start at Tampa Bay. That race looks – I went back and watched that race, Mike, and that is a really sharp performance. That runner-up, Emma Niesnick, was exiting a runner-up effort to Classic Car Wash, who's in the Tampa Bay Derby later, who exits a third in the Sam F. Davis. I thought that was a decent rival last time. The third-place finisher, Classic Creation, was a 2-1 favorite off of the convincing maiden win at Gulfstream Park for Mark Casse. So not only did Talk of the Nation have a really sharp win over the course, but I think he beat a couple nice horses, and I just think he's going to keep moving forward for Shug. He's going to be a really solid stakes horse if he stays healthy this year, and I look for him to run a big race with Sammy Camacho, who's the leading rider at Tampa Bay, and he wins a lot of turf races there.
I love the way, James, that you dive into the running lines and some of the horses that Talk of the Nation has been facing in his brief career. Again, only start number 4 coming up later today. But that's one thing that I think sometimes gets overlooked. People get so caught up in the numbers now that they don't go back through and look at the horses that any particular horse you're looking to bet was facing in their previous starts. And certainly Talk of the Nation has kept good company.
He really has kept terrific company in those last 2 starts. It's a situation where, you get a horse like him who's a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and it looks like, Shug's probably always thought well of him. You got to give him a shot on the dirt. You always have to give these horses a shot at the Derby. But when he gets on the turf and runs big like he did last time, you pretty much know his future is going to be on the grass.
I was fully expecting you to select the Tampa Bay Derby as your third race in this week's TwinSpires Triple Play, but you have not. You're going to go with race number 8 at Tampa Bay Downs, which is the Grade 3 Challenger, $100,000 purse, 1.1 on the main track. This is for the older horses. How'd you see this one?
Tampa Bay Downs, since February 1st, there's been no horses win a dirt route rallying from 4 lengths or more off of the pace. So I think all the jockeys there, all the people betting the track are well aware of how speed favoring that main track can play. And this Challenger Stake is a race where I just think there's a ton of speed signed on. Between Trademark, Mighty Heart, Classic Causeway, Surly Furious, and Tax, I think we have a real chance for a real contested pace. Obviously, Skippy Longstocking's a horse to beat, but to me, you have a horse like him who wins the Harlan's Holiday and then runs in the Pegasus World Cup. And I don't think that this race was initially part of their plans with him. I think they had a little bit bigger goals, and he ran so poorly last time that they're sending him back here. I always get a little bit uneasy when I see these horses that are opting for another start because all of a sudden their connections might not be so sure about them. I landed on the Reds, number 6. And there's a horse that, he's Safi Joseph's other horse in this race because Skippy Longstocking is going to be the big favorite for him. And it's a little bit of against the grain pick where he's going to be running late. But I loved his effort 2 starts back at Churchill Downs off the layoff. In fact, I look at the Reds. That last race was a 1-turn mile. I'm not counting that against him. And he went ridiculously wide that day. And 3 starts back, that race was 1.5 miles, which was too far for him. His other races at 1.16 miles or 1.8 miles he's got a win, he's got a second. These are coming at Saratoga, and then he gets beat less than a length in an allowance race, a stakes quality allowance in mid-November at Churchill. Runs behind Run Classic, and Happy American beats him by a head, and that horse comes back and wins back-to-back stakes at Fairgrounds. So I thought that was a really big effort. I think this horse is going to have more to offer moving forward for Safi. He just got him last summer, and I think he's going to get the right setup. So the Reds at 12-1 on the morning line. I'm going to bet him, but I'm going to bet him across the board, Mike, and I'm going to try to catch him at a decent price, if not first, at least second.
Yeah, it should be a really solid price as they leave the gate. So the Reds, number 6, the selection in race 8, the Challenger Stakes for James Scully. So, James, let's just recap the TwinSpires Triple Play for this week. You're going to kick things off at Oaklawn, race 7. You'll go with number 4, Back Ring Luck at 10-1. The 7th race at Tampa Bay Downs will go with number 10, Talk of the Nation, 4-1 on the morning line. And in the 8th race at Tampa, we'll go in number 6, the Reds, who is 12-1. So I always love when you and Vance and Joe and Scott all come on the show here and you pick horses that are value plays, because really you connect with one, it makes the TwinSpires triple play profitable. Hopefully we win with 2 or maybe even all 3.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, that gives you options. You're playing a 7-2 shot and you're like spreading your money out, place and show. I mean, there's nothing more bitter than getting beat like a head with a 20-1 shot, but it's a nice consolation prize if you bet 20 to win and place on it, and it pays $13.20 to place, Mike. So there's nothing wrong with running second sometimes if you've got money on it to run second.
All right, remember, you can bet those races any way you like at TwinSpires.com. James Scully, you can also get a chance to talk to him every week, every Thursday from 6 to 7 Eastern here on the network. All you have to do is call in to the Brisnet.com call-in show, and James and Bobby Neuman will talk racing with you for the full hour and answer all of your questions every single Thursday. James, appreciate the visit here this morning. Good luck at the windows, and we'll talk again soon.
All righty, and enjoy the day, Mike. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, go get him. James Scully with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. Those stories just so good, and this week's is certainly no exception. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin going to be with me at 10:30 Eastern for I Ask, They Answer. I'll hit him up with some of the hot topics in the sport today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this morning. Stay tuned for that. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Scholarships are available. Visit rtip.arizona.edu.
Curling, the classic sire.
They're off in the Derby City disdain. An obligatory action.
And it's got to be Clariere in the Tip Stakes. Nest, much the best. She won by better than 10 lengths in this coaching club. American Oaks, Cody's Wish, with the upset in the Fargo. And Malathon has won the personal ensign stakes.
Curling, standing at Hill and Dale.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was a millionaire West Virginia bred which died recently at the age of 31, and he passed just 6 days after the death of his breeder. The horse's name was Afternoon Delights. Foaled on February 28, 1992 in West Virginia, Afternoon Delights was a bay colt by Grade 1 winner Private Terms. His breeder, Burt Bacharach, had also bred the colt's first 2 dams, but they had gone winless in their racing careers with combined earnings of $4,000. Bacharach, of course, was known to Americans as a singer, composer, and conductor, whose talents earned him multiple Grammy and Academy Awards as well as an Emmy. He had entered the thoroughbred business in 1968, and at the time Afternoon Delights was foaled, Bacharach was keeping a small band of broodmares at Country Roads Farm in Charlestown, West Virginia, a facility which he operated in partnership with Vince Mascarelli. Bacharach, who bred the colt in the name of Blue Seas Music Incorporated, sent Afternoon Delights to Richard Mandela for training. Mandela, already well on his way toward a Hall of Fame career, would unveil the colt on October 23, 1994 in a maiden special weight at Santa Anita. Kent DeSormo, who would ride the colt throughout his career, rallied Afternoon Delights for a victory by a neck at odds of 10-1. The time for the 6 furlongs was a quick 1:08.4. In his second start, 3 weeks later, Afternoon Delights went to the post for the Grade 3 Hollywood preview at Hollywood Park. As he turned for home, he caught the attention of track announcer Trevor Denman.
They come for home, and Afternoon Delight just explodes away from them. And Afternoon Delight's looking like a champion as he comes home powerfully. The son of Private Term, super impressive by a good and easy 3.
Final time for the 7 furlongs that day was a stakes record 1 minute 20 and 4/5 seconds for 7 furlongs. And in his final start of the year, Afternoon Delights would run his record to 3 for 3 with a score in the Grade 1 Hollywood Futurity. Ed Berghardt calls him to the wire.
But here is a superstar in the making. His name is Afternoon Delights. And take a look at this horse. He's 6 lengths in front. Afternoon Delights is moving along powerfully. Thunder Gulch is now out after him on the outside. HHS driving back. But here is a superstar headed to the Kentucky Derby next year. That horse's name is Afternoon Delights. And Kent DeSormo and Afternoon Delights absolutely galloping in the Hollywood Futurity. 7 lengths in front.
As the 1-2 favorite that afternoon, Afternoon Delights went 2 turns for the first time and handled it like a pro. He beat future Kentucky Derby and Belmont Stakes winner Thunder Gulch by 6.5 lengths. His time of 1 minute 40.74 seconds narrowly missed both the stakes and track record. Afternoon Delights was now being described as a young star on the rise. He moved with what one journalist called a steady, lovely cadence, and he was said to be more mature than 3 races would indicate. 2 months later, Afternoon Delights, now a 3-year-old, went back to work and extended his winning streak. In February of 1995, he won the Grade 3 San Vicente at Santa Anita as the 1-5 favorite. And in March, he ran his unbeaten string to 5 in a row with a win over reigning champion Timber Country in the Grade 2 San Felipe. 5 wins in 5 starts, a stakes record, a Grade 1 win, and a victory over a champion. It was an incredible beginning for Afternoon Delights, but a couple of setbacks were looming ahead. In the Santa Anita Derby, Afternoon Delights finished second by a head to Larry the Legend, sustaining his first loss. And in the Kentucky Derby, he ran 8th behind Thunder Gulch, the horse he had beaten soundly just 5 months earlier. After the Kentucky Derby, Afternoon Delights underwent tendon surgery and took the rest of the summer off, frolicking on a ranch near Del Mar in Southern California. He would return to the races on opening day at Santa Anita in December, winning the Grade 1 Malibu Stakes before a crowd of 30,000. Afternoon Delights would add the Grade 2 Commonwealth Stakes at Keeneland the following spring in stakes record time, as well as runner-up finishes in both the Grade 1 Strube Stakes and the Grade 1 Metropolitan. His retirement would be announced on June 29, 1996, after sustaining another tendon injury, and he would retire with 7 wins in 12 starts and $1 million in earnings. After standing at stud in both Kentucky and Louisiana, Afternoon Delights was sent to Old Friends, the thoroughbred retirement farm in Georgetown, Kentucky, in 2011. It was there that he died on February 14th this year at the age of 31. By coincidence, Bacharach had passed just 6 days earlier at age 94. Of his 12 career starts, Afternoon Delights raced 11 times in graded stakes competition, winning 6 of those 11 events. It led Bacharach to remark, quote, "All I am is the custodian of an animal like this," end quote. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
New to Cool More America for 2023 is Jack Christopher. A son of top sire Munnings and a 3-time Grade 1 winner, Jack Christopher was an 8 3/4 length winner on debut at Saratoga at 2 before winning the Grade 1 Champagne with a whopping 102 Beyer. His 3-year-old campaign included wins in the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile, the Grade 1 Woody Stevens by 10 lengths, and the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. Jack Christopher stands at an introductory fee of $45,000. Call the team at Ashford today to book your mare before he fills up.
Tenda Equine and Pet Care products have been keeping world-class equine athletes happy and healthy for generations. Keep your equine athlete looking and performing well with Tenda Next Generation Wound and Skin Care Treatment, along with nutritional supplements, leg and muscle care products, salves, hoof care, poultice, topical aids, and grooming products. Visit tendahorse.com today.
The Run Happies are running, the Run Happies are selling, the Run Happies are winning. Eclipse champion Run Happy is joining a new dimension with winners on turf, dirt, and all weather. A record-breaking sprint champion, Run Happy is also showing winners at all distances, from 7 furlongs to 1.25 miles. A sire whose runners can carry his speed over all distances and all surfaces. Run Happy, price for value, and standing strong at Claiborne Farm.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
As they move headlong into the final furlong, and Street Sense has roared from 19th position to first in the Derby. Hardspun tries to hold for second, and then farther back in Sedgefield on every given Saturday. And here is Street Sense, a stretch running sensation to win the Derby by 2.
Super Saver Calvin Burrell, 1 furlong from the Derby here. Nobles Thomas runs in second. Penny O'Connell is now third. Make music for me. Big Bog Shot now fourth on the outside. And they're coming down to the finish. And it is Super Saver. A late run from Icebox. But it's Super Saver and Calvin Burrell. The unflappable Calvin Burrell. Riding that rail to victory once again in the Kentucky Derby.
Well, as you'd expect, the legendary Tom Durkin with a couple of sensational Derby calls. 44 horses have used the Tampa Bay Derby as a stepping stone to a start in the Run for the Roses, but only Street Sense and Super Saver have been successful on the first Saturday in May. How many Kentucky Derby starters should we expect from this year's Tampa Bay Derby field? And is Forte's victory in the Fountain of Youth enough to prove it's him and everybody else in this year's 3-year-old crop? Plus, Dale and Tim share their toughest beats and their greatest gambling stories. All of that's still ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin. And it's all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
Well, guys, we've been waiting for a 3-year-old to step up and assert themselves as the one to beat on the first Saturday in May. Was Forte's win in the Fountain of Youth enough to convince you that it is Forte and everyone else? Dale, you were there. What do you think?
If he beats Cyclone Mischief, he's a really good horse, and he's the leader of the pack right now. Any way you look at it, there's no way around it. He ran a beautiful race off a lightly, according to the works, he was lightly worked coming in, and looks like there's room for improvement. I was super impressed.
If he does beat Cyclone Mischief, he has to be at the top of the class, because we all know we're all big fans of Cyclone Mischief on this show.
All right.
But Forte, I mean, just you looked at him in the paddock before the race. I mean, he just looked like he was going to toy with this field, just the way he was prancing and up on his toes. And, you know, he had a little bit of trouble in that race. He got behind a wall of horses on the backstretch, but there was never any doubt once he got in the clear, and he just powered past that field. Right now, without question, he's the top 3-year-old, but still there's a long way to go. Well, not long, but a long way to go until the first Saturday in May. And as of today, March 11th, he's definitely the one to beat. But there's other horses that I'm still looking forward to seeing what they do moving forward.
Yeah, he's certainly the leader in the clubhouse. There's no doubt about it. And Dale, you know that when a horse comes back from 2 to 3, especially a champion like Forte, there's always some anxious moments as to whether he's going to be as good as advertised, and he certainly was. Your horse, Cyclone Mischief, ran huge to be third, but Forte was in another stratosphere last weekend.
Hats off to Todd. He did a great job bringing him back. And you're right. There's a lot of horses don't make that turn from 2 to 3. You look at the 2 top fillies last year. Both them crapped out in their first race back. It's a difficult thing because they mature early, and it's hard to keep a horse going the right way for that long, and the rest of the class usually catches up. But Forte, to me, he's on a pedestal right now. He's all by himself.
Well, Forte may have stolen the show last Saturday, but there were 3 other Derby points races run last week. You had Raised Cane, who won the Gotham. You had Practical Move, who took the San Felipe, and Congruent, who upset the John Battaglia Memorial at Turfway. Tim, I'll come to you first. Which of those horses impressed you the most?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go first by the horses I'd eliminate. Raised Cane was 23 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
He won by open lengths on a muddy track, so I'm not sold on him. Congruent, who was ridden by Sonny Leone, who we remember him from Rich Strike last year. That horse was 16 to 1. Raced Aesthetics in the Battaglia, won by 3.5 lengths. So I throw him out. So by process of elimination, I'm saying Practical Move was the one that impressed me the most for Tim Yakteen, who was saddling also horses that were in the Bob Baffert barn, but this horse is his, and he won by 2.5 lengths, and he was 4 to 1, and he got 100 buyer speed figure from that race. And that's just one of 3-year-olds this year that have gotten to that plateau. Forte had a 98. So I would say Practical Move was the most impressive race of last weekend.
Yeah, I have to agree. Practical Move's race was a nice race. He was a good 2-year-old down here last year. He brought 200-something thousand. He was a beautiful horse. And then if you look at the race, I mean, 7 of the 9 are coming off of wins. The other 2 were second and third. It was a better than average race at Santa Anita. Usually at Santa Anita, if you're not a Bob Baffert horse, it's anticlimactic. But I thought he ran a beautiful race, and I think Tim's best horse is going to be his own.
Yeah, very well could be.
Well, remember,
that would be ironic considering all the Baffert horses.
Oh, he did get Arabian Night, your number 1 pick.
That's right.
Yeah, well, time will tell if indeed Practical Move turns out to be the best of the bunch. But no doubt about it, Forte is the leader in that division as we sit here on March 11th. Guys, let me ask you this question. You had the Tampa Bay Derby today, which is going to offer 50 points to the winner. 12-horse field. How many Kentucky Derby starters can we realistically expect to see come out of that race? Dale?
You can come up with a couple out there. The first and second horses will get enough points most likely, or close to it, depending on how things shake out. Now, how many Derby winners are coming out of there? I say 0. But a couple of starters will show up.
You know, you look at this race historically, which I did. The most horses that ever came out of this race that went to the Derby was 4, and that was in 2009. There's been a handful of other times that 3 horses exited this race and went to the Derby. You know, if you finish 1, 2, 3, you're probably going to think about it for sure, because you're going to have points, 50 for the winner, 20 for second, 15 for third. It will get you in the, you know, the third place, or get you into the ballpark of, you know, maybe qualifying for the Derby. But, you know, Todd is, you know, he's going for his 6th Tampa Bay Derby this week, today, and, you know, he's got the top 2 choices in Tappet Trice and She's Sturkin. You would think if he finishes in the top 3 with those two, that they might move on, and then he could have a loaded gun for the Kentucky Derby if these horses run like they're expected to, because they're the top 2 choices. But I would say no more than 3 would come out of this race, which has a field of 12, and would be in the starting gate at Churchill.
Dale, we know that Timmy researches like nobody else. He's fantastic when he gets ready for this show and prepares. Tim, I'm going to hit you up with let's see exactly how much research you did. You said 2009 was the year that the Tampa Bay Derby produced 4 Kentucky Derby starters, the most it's ever produced. Who won the Tampa Bay Derby in 2009?
Musket Man.
Boom.
You're not going to trip him up. If you've given him the script, he's read it, he's researched it, he's done it all.
Well, that's what I do.
Well, I'm sure our good friend Nick Zito would say the same, and Nick is with us now as he is every week here on the show with this week's edition of Right or Wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Guys, I did it a little differently this week. This afternoon, we remember 2 of the great distaffers our sport has ever seen with the Azeri Stakes at Oaklawn and Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. I have selected 5 sets of pairings, and I can't wait to find out if you guys think that I am right or wrong in my opinions of which horse would emerge victorious out of these pairings. So here you go. Going to kick it off with Personal Ensign versus Zenyatta, and I'm going to take the courageous, undefeated Personal Ensign in this one. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale, what say you?
100% right. She was something special. And one of the highlights of my friendships with people in this game is taking Randy Romero back to the airport after the races one day, and he's telling me about the pressure he felt to retire undefeated with Personal Ensign when they loaded in the gate for the 1988 Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs, and he nailed the Philly Derby winner, Winning Colors, on the wire in the last jump. He said when they were loading in the gate, he just wanted to hide somewhere. And he got up on the last jump and what is undoubtedly, in my opinion, the greatest Breeders' Cup day in history.
Well, I love Personal Ensign. I mean, that Breeders' Cup distaff, when she was behind by 4 lengths or so with the eighth of a mile to go and still showed her courage to win that. But I'm going to say wrong. I'm going to go with Zenyatta only because this is a filly that won 19 of 20. She won the Breeders' Cup Classic, beating the males in 2009, and ironically didn't even get Horse of the Year. That went to another filly I think we're going to talk about later. But and Personal Ensign beat Boys in the Whitney, but she only beat 2 of them. So I'm going to say Zenyatta only by the barest of margins on this one, because she captured the imagination of the sport and had such a phenomenal career, taking away nothing from Personal Ensign. But Zenyatta, I think, wins by a lip on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, one little caveat on my decision is I sit every day next to Shug McGahee and talk about stuff watching our horses train. And I got to sit with him tomorrow.
Good choice then, Dale. Personal Ensign for Dale, Zenyatta for Tim. Matchup number 2, Winning Colors versus Rachel Alexandra. And I've got Rachel all day long in this matchup. Am I right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Timmy?
I'm going to say right on this one, Mike. Rachel was, when she was at the top of her game, there was no one better. She beat Boys 3 times in her 3-year-old season, winning the Preakness, the Haskell, and then beating Olders in the Woodward at Saratoga, and which was, you can still hear Tom Durkin's call. The rafters of the spa were shaking when she won that day. In Winning Colors, one of only 3 fillies to win the Kentucky Derby, and that stands for something. But, Rachel Alexander with 13 wins and 19 starts, 2009 Horse of the Year, when there was such a great debate who should get it, her or Zenyatta, and she did get it. But I think Rachel Alexandra wins this one fairly comfortably.
I must agree. Rachel was something special. I know they're both such special fillies. I mean, you're splitting hairs when you're talking about any of these fillies that you've got in this competition. But Rachel, I think she should have been the 4th Kentucky Derby winner. They should have run her in the Derby that year. Her 4th filly Kentucky Derby winner. And do y'all realize she was owned and half owned by the owner of Shackelford, Mike Laufer, and his team? And that, so I had a little extra incentive to cheer for.
All right, so Rachel gets the nod from both Dale and Tim over winning colors. How about Lady Secret versus Monomoy Girl? And I'm going to take the Iron Lady, Lady Secret. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale?
I'm with you all the way on this one. Lady Secret was in the sweet spot of my being a big fan more than a participant in a lot of this game. And Wayne Lucas's filly was something special. I mean, of course, a couple of people jumped off the bridge the last time she ran. But up till then, she was unbeatable.
45 starts. Who makes 45 starts in a career anymore? Yeah, the Iron Lady for sure. 25 wins. She, the daughter of Secretariat, Horse of the Year in '86. That year, 8 of her 10 wins were Grade 1s. She was indeed one of the most talented fillies we've ever seen. And that's not to take anything away from Monomoy Girl, who won 14 of 17 in her career. And remember, in her career, she missed a year because of a bout of colic, and then she had a pulled muscle. And then she came back at 5 and 6 and really was pretty well. She won the distaff twice after coming back. So, but Lady Secret, I think, just did too much, but did much more than Monomoy Girl. I mean, Monomoy Girl only had 17 starts. Lady Secret indeed wasn't the Iron Lady. She's on a pedestal.
All right, I don't think this next one's quite as easy, but we'll find out. In honor of the 2 stakes races being run today, Azeri versus Beholder. And for me, I'm going to take Queen Bee, Beholder, all day long. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Okay.
Timmy?
Well, I think you're right on this one, Mike. I'm with you on this. Beholder, I mean, she won the four different Eclipse Awards during her career, and you know, it always was one of the things that I wish would have happened when she was scratched before the 2015 Breeders' Cup Classic at Keeneland, because she bled during a work, and it would have been interesting to see what would have happened in that race with Farrow and her. And she's one of 2 horses in history to win 3 Breeders' Cup races. I mean, those are some really juicy pieces of a resume. And Azeri, you know, Horse of the Year in 2002, won 17 of 24 starts. But I don't think she did as much as Beholder did. Beholder's one of the all-time greats.
One of the greatest races of all time, the distaff at Santa Anita. And I have to agree with you. Beholder's one of the all-time greats. And not taking anything away from Azeri, she was one of them, too. She was in that Dallas Breeders' Cup Classic when I ran Roses in May. I think one of the best classics ever assembled. And just a great race mare. But you're right. I'm going Beholder.
All right, so you both agree with me. I'm a little surprised. I didn't think that would be as easy to figure out, but Beholder was pretty brilliant. So was Azeri, but I'll take Beholder. All right, how about the last one? Ruffian versus any of the legends that we just mentioned in this segment. If they're all in the same race, my money is going on Ruffian. Am I right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, what do you think? Right or wrong?
You know, I'm only going on hearsay because I was a little young. But Jacinto Vasquez, another good friend, and Leroy Jolly, another good friend, that trained for Louis Pleasure in the match race. Jacinto told me he never got to the last gear on this filly. He said she was the greatest thing he ever set aboard. And he rode a lot of good horses. And I'm going to tell you a little sidebar. So I'm going Ruffian over everyone. And a sidebar, though, is I have great footage on my phone of me and Leroy sitting in my office at Saratoga, and there happened to be a social media guy there doing some filming of when Keen Ice won the Travers. And Leroy had 2 stalls in my barn. He's one of my good friends. We're sitting in my office, and we start talking about it. And I told the guy, roll the camera, and ended up sitting there and interviewed Leroy about the match race and how it came about and how different it was supposed to be compared to what it ended up. One of these days, we'll get it taken care of. We'll get it out there where people can see it.
That would be amazing. Timmy, what do you think?
Well, I'm sticking with Ruffian on this too. I mean, I never saw her race just live. Obviously, I mean, I was in in high school, but I think that 10 wins and 11 starts. Every stakes race she was in, she set a stakes record, led at every call. She's probably the best filly that ever lived, and I think that it would be an injustice to take anyone over Ruffian. She was that good.
Yeah, and there were several other top distaffers that could have made this matchup segment here today, but I wanted to kind of try to set some things where they were somewhat similar but a little bit different in some ways, some older horses versus some more modern horses, and you guys knocked it out of the park. So Ruffian versus any of the legends, you're both taking Ruffian, and I would agree, all three of us on the Ruffian train there. She was spectacular. All right, that is right or wrong. We're going to do that segment all over again.
That was good. That was good stuff. I like that segment.
Thanks, Dale. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll do something similar as we get down the road to the Kentucky Derby. Maybe we'll compare past Derby winners or something as we get close to that first Saturday in May. All right, two more topics to get to before we wrap it up. On Tuesday, NYRA announced the 2023 Saratoga Stakes schedule, which is going to offer 71 stakes worth $20.8 million. But it does cut nearly $2 million in purse money, and it eliminates 6 ungraded stakes events from this year's schedule. Timmy, you're the Saratoga guy. Do you like these moves?
Well, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it's you look at the people that go to Saratoga. I mean, if you ran donkeys at Saratoga, they'd come out and bet it. I mean, I don't think the general public doesn't care. If horsemen, I'm sure, care, but some of the stakes races that were cut, like the Saratoga Derby went from $1 million to $600,000, which I never thought it should have been $1 million race anyway. Saratoga Oaks $700 to $400. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. The best thing I thought that came out of the Saratoga Stakes schedule being announced was that they finally named a race for Harvey Pack, and that longtime racetrack character who had made a career out of, doing the OTB show, and just a wonderful character. And I think it was long overdue that they finally got a race in his name. So I think that's the best thing for me that came out of this.
I don't think you'll see any major differences. The average fan won't notice a thing about the changes, but the great thing is to have Harvey Pack and the horse be with you, a race named after him. Should have happened a long time ago, way overdue.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I can tell you, I haven't read many books over the years, but one book that I did read that was signed by the great Harvey Pack was his book that he wrote, which it was fantastic. So many great stories in there, and I agree with you guys. I'm so glad that they made that move and named a race in Harvey's honor. All right, one final topic before we have to wrap things up. We have a few minutes left in the show. The 24th NTRA National Handicapping Championship is taking place in Vegas this weekend, so I thought it was the perfect time to share a couple of stories about our toughest gambling beats and our greatest scores. So if I were to ask you guys to share some of those, what is your most gut-wrenching beat that you can recall, and what is probably the most memorable score that you have ever had? Timmy, you want it first?
Yeah, I'm going to go to a pair of Travers Stakes in 2008, I believe. Colonel John beat Mambo in Seattle, who I loved the whole summer, by a nose. And I still think that Mambo in Seattle won the race, because I remember I was going on a TV interview as soon as the race was over, and I was starting to talk about how this is before the race was even made official, and I was going on about how Mambo in Seattle just won the Travers, and we had to cut it after the race made official and do it all over again. But that was a race that really put a dent in my wallet. And then a couple years later, our buddy Nick Zito, who I liked his horse a lot, Fly Down, in the Travers, got beat a nose by a Fleet Express from Jimmy Jerkins. And St. Nick, to this day, will tell you that he thinks he won that race, and I kind of agree with him, because that nose was very, very slim, and those two are. I'm sure there's plenty more, but those two are the ones that stick out to me. And as far as the biggest score, there was a horse named, I don't know if you remember, this was nondescript, a horse named Scheme, who, for Jimmy Bond, who was racing on the grass for the first time at Gulfstream a couple years ago. And Jimmy loved the horse and went off at 25-1 and won like a champ. So that's one of my best scores I've ever had. Because I think it was Paco Lopez was just found a hole, went through it, and the horse won for fun. And I was a hero to a few people that I also enlightened on that bit of information that I got.
Those are great stories. Dale, how about for you?
Well, for me, I'm not a gambler, believe it or not. I haven't bet on a horse in 20 years. But, if I could write a book about my father's stories on gambling and why he was in the game and what he was a part of, including Blair Wood. Its real name, that ran under the name Briarwood in the 1986-88 Kentucky Derby Day card and beat Phil Shoemaker and nose on the wire and paid $77, which he had to do a 2-year suspension over because the horse ran in the wrong name. And I could write a whole book about that, or I could write a book about a lot of other gambling stories from Judgment Call at Beulah Park that people remember. But I think one of the funniest things, I had some gambling owners, and I was trying to keep this first-time starter under wraps when I went to Saratoga for the first time in my life at 27 years old. And I think nobody knows this horse can run. And I've been going to races for about a week, and I'm trying to be a big shot. I'm tipping the valet guy good, and taking care of the gatekeepers. And I pull into the parking lot today that middleman's running. This guy has no idea who I am. He takes my car, and he says, "Come here, bud. You've been taking care of me. I'm going to take care of you today. Let me give you this horse to bet on." And it was middleman, my horse. Half what I expected him to pay. Today's been a good show. That's another good question, but we should talk more about gambling stories. I could tell you the $150,000 pick six I did bet with Frank Jones at Saratoga. We were hitting for $150,000, and we got disqualified in this race and got back $10,000, which at the time was still good, but it wasn't quite what I wanted when I thought I was getting $150 back. But there's too many of those stories to talk about on even an hour show, so we'll have to do that again.
Yeah, I can chime in on this topic too. Probably my best score of all time came at Saratoga when I hit a pick four that paid over $4,000 for 50 cents. I had it for $1, so I got it twice, get over $8,000, but I had to survive an inquiry that lasted about 15 minutes because the horse I had in the last leg where I hit the all button in that race was 20-something to 1. The horse that was second in the inquiry was the favorite in the race. So if indeed the results were not upheld, I probably would have lost money on my bet instead of winning $8,000. But they did not disqualify the long shot. He held up as the winner. So that was probably my greatest score. And I'll tell you, one of my greatest disappointments, which still sticks to me to this day, August 5th, 2000, race 5 at Saratoga. I was playing in a handicapping contest out at Keeneland that day, and I was kind of in the mix. I wasn't close to the lead, but I was in the mix. I bet a horse that was 15-1 in that race by the name of Apple Turnover Mike, and he was making a huge move on the turn, going to blow by the entire field. He's going to win for fun. A horse clips heels in front of him. Apple Turnover Mike has to hurdle that fallen rival. He does. The jockey stays on, and he loses about 5 lengths. He comes flying again through the stretch because he had so much. He was so full of run, and he gets beat a half a length for the whole thing. But I got 0 points for it in my bankroll. If he wins, I probably win the whole thing. I probably go to Vegas with a pocket full of money. But it was not meant to be. That was probably one of the more difficult beats for me to get over. Apple Turnover Mike, August 5th. Race 5 at Saratoga.
Hey, Mike, if that horse would have won, you might have been a big high roller in Las Vegas, and we wouldn't be on this show.
Yeah, you might have got out there celebrating, got drunk, and run over by a car. You're probably better off.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to look at everything.
Exactly. I'll tell you a quick story, though, about gambling, too. So I just started dating Tammy, and I'm nothing but a groom for my father, and she's, in my mind, a famous jockey, riding winners, and we're just start going out, and she's riding a horse for her mother and her father, Big Courage. And she tells me, can't get beat. So I bet my case bankroll $200 at the time. Boom. And she takes off down the backside, passes Pat Day, and of course, in Pat Day fashion, he comes back and nails her on the wire. lose my money. And so I took her to McDonald's that night. She says, do you think I moved too early on Big Courage today? I said, no, baby, you didn't move too early. What are you talking about? It's Pat Day, da-da-da. We lost some money, no big deal. So fast forward 10 years, we're in a big argument one day, and she's winning, and I got to go for the gut. And I said, by the way, you did move too early on Big Courage 10 years ago.
You just kept that one in reserve until you needed it, Dale.
I held it back till I needed it, but it didn't work out the way I expected. She still won the argument.
I'll bet it didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure that went over really well.
All right.
All right. Time to wrap it up. You'll get to your final point momentarily, but I want to give an update on the showdown that Tim and Dale are competing in. They're squaring off all the way through the Belmont Stakes with a stable that they have drafted. And after week 2 of the showdown last week, Dale and Tim are both on the board. Dale, you jumped out to the early lead. You're ahead 12-10. Thanks to Charge's runner-up effort in the Gulfstream Park Mile and Cyclone Mischief and that third-place finish in the Fountain of Youth. Tim, you had Forte, the winner of the Fountain of Youth, but it only got you the 10 points for the win. So Dale takes an early lead in the showdown.
Well, I don't think anybody. I'm not going to mention any names, but a lot of people on the racetrack now are calling him 2 Down Tim.
2 down?
2 Down Tim.
What does that mean?
You're 2 down.
You're 2 down.
Oh, 2 down. Oh man, it's. I have no doubt I'm going to win this.
All right. No horses from either stable competing this weekend, so the score will remain 12-10 after this week. But your horses will be in action, no doubt, many times between now and the Belmont Stakes. And folks can go to our website, horseracingradio.net, and they can see your entire stable. They can keep score updates there. It's all posted on our homepage. So head over, check out their teams, and chime in. Let us know who you think is going to win the showdown when we get to the Belmont Stakes in early June. All right, guys, one final segment. It is time for you to make your parting shot, your final point of the week. Timmy, why don't you take it first?
I'm going to propose something for our competition. I'm going to propose there's 1 week, and Mike, you being the judge, you tell us when it is, that we can drop one horse and pick another one.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay. That sounds like weakness to me, but I don't care.
I think he's
I'm
running
doing it
scared.
to help you.
What's that?
I'm doing it to help you.
Don't worry about me, Hoss. Bring them on. But if you want to do it that way, that's fine. Weakness is a good thing for me. Seeing weakness in the competition.
I just think it would be something that would spice it up. But,
Dale, give me your parting shot.
My parting shot is, last Wednesday was International Women's Day, and I want to tip my hat to the women of racing. We got Kathleen O'Connell only 2 away from passing Kim Hammond as the all-time leading female trainer, and they're both ahead of me in number of wins. But I want to say, tip my hat to all the ladies of racing. It's a man-dominated game. They have to work harder. They have to prove themselves more, and there's no 2 better representatives to the trainer industry than Kim Hammond and Kathleen O'Connell. I tip my hat to both. They've won over 2,000 races apiece.
Yep, very well said, and I would echo those sentiments too. Going to be fantastic to see Kathleen get the record, and 2 really incredible women in our sport right there. Dale, Tim, appreciate it, guys. We'll do it all over again next week. Enjoy the weekend.
All right, fellas.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. If you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate, you know what to do. Email it to me, Mike@horseracingradio.net, and I'll get it worked in for you in the weeks ahead. I Ask, They Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. I'll be back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing
fans, come
Radio
see Top
Network.
Fillies and Mares this Saturday in the Grade 1 $500,000 Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. Our supporting feature is the Grade 2 San Carlos Stakes, so come join the fun with first post time for a 9-race card at 12:30 p.m. Be sure to mark Saturday, April 8th on your calendar as the Grade 1 $750,000 Our Run Happy Santa Anita Derby will highlight a tremendous day of racing that'll also include 5 other stakes, including the Grade 2 Santa Anita Oaks, the Grade 2 Charles Whittingham, and the Grade 3 Monrovia. That's all on Santa Anita Derby Day, Saturday, April 8th. Don't miss the first coast-to-coast Pick 5 each weekend. It's a $1 minimum bet with a player-friendly 15% takeout covering 5 races from Santa Anita and Gulfstream Park. And fans, get your weekend rolling by joining us on any Friday, as we'll have free admission and parking, as well as $3 beers and $5 margaritas. Just east of Pasadena in Arcadia, Santa Anita. It's the great race place.
New to Coolmore America for 2023 is Jack Christopher. A son of top sire Munnings and a 3-time Grade 1 winner, Jack Christopher was an 8 3/4 length winner on debut at Saratoga at 2 before winning the Grade 1 Champagne with a whopping 102 Beyer. His 3-year-old campaign included wins in the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile, the Grade 1 Woody Stevens by 10 lengths, and the Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins. Jack Christopher stands at an introductory fee of $45,000. Call the team at Ashford today to book your mare before he fills up.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Matthew.
There's a reason why Tony Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow. Or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Oh, don't forget to follow the road to the Kentucky Derby, plus have the latest racing, breeding, sales, industry news and analysis, and entries, results, so much more at your fingertips with the Blood Horse Daily app. Just go to bloodhorse.com/daily to download the app or sign up now. Well, my thanks to all of our guests for making today's shows possible, including Dale and Tim in that previous segment, Kurt Becker with the great Stroll Through Racing history on Afternoon Delights, James Scully with the TwinSpires Triple Play, and the Hall of Famer Todd Pletcher for walking through all of his 3-year-olds, including Champion Forte last weekend. If you missed any portion of the show, head over to our website, horseracingradio.net. Check out the podcast and do it on every major podcast platform. And follow along on social media at HRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. Now for my producer, Lee Delapina in our Lexington studio, for Chauncey, handling all of our social media again this morning, I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Go Steelers.